Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 415. I am Peter, and joining me, as always, is Matt.
Hey, what's up?
Except next week, where it's probably going to be Connor instead, but that's neither here nor there. Brace yourselves for Ginger, okay? It's coming next week. But yeah, it's the DC Comics podcast. We get together, we talk about the DC books we read this week, and it's the start of an event this week, so there's some things to talk about. Coming up on this week's show, we have Absolute Power issue 1, we have Batman 150, we got Birds of Prey 11, Shazam 13, Justice Society of America 10, Poison Ivy 24, The Boy Wonder number 3, and I've got a Patreon book to do. I'll be talking about American Vampire Second Cycle issue 9. So, busy enough week. Honestly, I was looking ahead at the rest of the month. All my weeks are now up to 6 or 7 books, just thanks to the various event tie-ins and whatever else. So, yeah. I mean, we'll see if something like Task Force 7 sticks around past one issue, but that's next week's mission to find out. I don't have to worry about that today. So, yeah, before we get into it, though, Matt, how was your week?
Very, very, despite supposing, that I had time off, it's been very stressful. I had a lot to do. But on the 4th of July, I think I broke a personal record and I watched 5 movies in a day.
Ooh.
So, yeah. Most stuff that I've seen before, of course. I think all of it was stuff that I've seen before. So,
Yeah, I think I have got that beat. Not recently, admittedly, but
yes.
Back in like my kind of late high school, maybe a few years after high school, there was definitely a few specific days where I did 6 or 7 in a day.
Good Lord.
Just because, and it's not like it was something I did multiple times back to back, but there was like, you know, just the rare day where I just wanted to watch movies, ended up doing that all day.
Yeah. Like the people that go to those marathons, I don't know how they do it. They'll be like right before Endgame came out, they were doing all the Marvel movies. And you're talking that's 2 days worth of movies.
Yeah, it was
there.
It was never a planned thing either. It was always just like, I watch a movie, I watch the movie. Oh, I could go another movie. And then by the time I got to the end of the day, I'm like, wait a minute, how many movies did I watch today? But I mean, I feel like I've not went above 3 in a day in years.
That's usually, I try to space them out if I can, because if it's all new stuff, it's hard to take it all in.
And to be fair, 3's pretty rare as well still.
Yeah.
I really watch more than 2 in a day. So just the way life is.
But
I don't have the stamina for it anymore. I'm not a young man.
No. That said, I did watch Return of the Living Dead for the first time yesterday.
Okay.
And that was fantastic. So it's I wouldn't say it's not good, but it's very fun and watchable.
I'm a weirdo who likes part 2 more, but I mean most people would agree with that.
Now I have to watch part 2 because I know this is going to be, what is it? Heresy. There you go. I'm also working on Low Sleep today, so fun times. But I liked it more than Night of the Living Dead, but that's just me.
Oh, that is Heresy. You're right. You're absolute lunatic. No, I can't get on board with that in any way, shape, or form.
I wouldn't expect you to.
I thought he was like, it's close, baby.
Yes. So.
No. And then 3's not very good. But if you like Melinda Clarke, you'll see a lot of her naked. So.
Say less. I will say I didn't realize there's a whole franchise around Return of the Living Dead. And anytime I just saw Of the Living Dead or Of the Dead, I assume they're all just part of the Romero, verse, I guess.
Oh no, Return's its own thing, yeah.
Yeah.
So 2 is a proper sequel. 3 is a bit lower quality sequel. Not that 2 is like a high quality thing either, but in relative to the first movie. There's a 4 and a 5, I believe, but I think they're kind of like they're like Silent Deadly Night 4 and 5, where they're just kind of random TV movies. They had the right to the name, so they used it. It wasn't really a proper sequel in that sense. I've never seen 4 and 5. I can't comment on the quality of them, but I know they exist technically. But
they don't have their own pages on Wikipedia, so that's fun.
I am not surprised. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have anything super exciting to report. I did watch a Neil Breen movie last Sunday. I mean, that was...
You okay?
I'm okay.
You survived? Yeah.
I mean, Hey, you know what? He's one of yours, Matt. He's from Vegas.
Yes, I know.
So, you know, I look at you, I just see Neil Breen Jr.
Okay. I'm sure he's a lot more attentive than my father was. So.
Watch Faithful Findings. If you want the review of that, it's not up yet, but it'll be up later this month over in the Patreon with me and David.
Yes.
But key thing from Faithful Findings is that the movie opens with a flashback of the two main characters as kids. They're both meant to be 8 years old, right? A boy and a girl. The boy grows up to be Neil Breen, unfortunately for him. But when we come to present day and we meet these characters, somehow the woman love interest is half the age of Neil Breen, even though they were both 8 years old in the flashback together.
Either she did some good living or he did some hard living, maybe both.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg, but that's just one of the details I throw out. It was his most confusing film yet out of because I've seen them in order. So,
wow, that's saying a lot, then, right?
It is. I mean, I could make sense of the other two to an extent. Like, you know, okay, he's robot Jesus. He's here to judge humanity, whatever. Like, you know,
What is that sentence?
That's I am here now for anyone who wants to go check out the movie I just described. I am here now. God. 4 dots, not 3, like most people would do when they're doing ellipses. No, 4, because he's Neil Breen. He goes one step beyond.
I love when you pull this stuff on Wiki, because you know Wiki's all user generated, right? So some stuff that follows, that gets through that wouldn't be in traditional media, but it says Fateful Findings. Upon release, it was declared one of the worst films ever made, and quickly gained a cult following. I love that. I love that sentence can exist.
That's just accurate.
Yeah.
His 6th film, I think, just came out last year.
Oh boy.
We'll get to that eventually. I'm in no rush though. We can hold our slower horses.
So I saw on Twitter yesterday there was a reviewer. I don't know how big of a reviewer, but enough that they had seen this guy's movie and made a properly fair review of it, saying like, hey, it's not well made, but I admire the craft that went into like the attempt. And apparently the director, star, and writer, all the same person, much like Neil Breen, took exception and started trying to troll him online. So he blocked him, and then this director, writer, star went to Instagram to harass him. So thankfully Neil Breen doesn't have that dog in him, it seems like. It seems like he just, drops and goes.
He's too busy working on his manifesto. Yeah. Seriously, he should be on a watch list after the end of that last one I watched. But that's the thing, though. When you get to this level of filmmaker, where they're just these cheap movies that one person's writing, directing, starring in, doing the catering, like all levels of the production themselves, they are the type of person who's got time to be on Twitter, seeing what people are saying about their movie and harassing them. Like that's like Christopher Nolan's not got that time. Like he's too busy manning $300 million epics. He ain't got time to argue with people on Twitter.
Even a more divisive filmmaker, like let's say Michael Bay, he is not caring what a random film reviewer is saying about his movie, because he's crying himself to sleep on beds of money.
Oh yeah, he's on his yacht. He's got I don't know whatever he's doing with his free time.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Which whatever Michael Bay does, I don't know, but yeah, definitely. The one person that probably does care is somebody like Spielberg, but he doesn't act on it, right? Because I feel like he tries to stay tapped in, So I feel like you've made Spielberg cry a couple times.
Why? Because The Lost World shit.
Well, just because you always have your stance of later Spielberg versus younger Spielberg, and I just feel like he would take that personally a little bit.
I don't think Spielberg's aware of my opinions on his films.
Let's pretend that he is, because it's gonna make everyone that comes out much more fun to think about. At least since Ready Player One. Although that said, I did like Fabelmans a lot, but I thought that was a movie for me. Yes.
Ready Player One. I don't have fond memories of that.
Nope.
Oh dear.
God, I got mad. I got really mad at that trailer for making me emotional, but that's just because they used the Back to the Future music with the DeLorean,
If you want to cringe yourself to sleep, you can look up some poetry that the writer of Ready Player One did years ago about how he wants nerdy girls to be in porn. And you will cringe. You will cringe harder than you maybe have ever cringed before.
Brother, this guy sucks.
It's pretty rough.
I remember reading that book because I got ready for the movie and like, oh, Spielberg's doing this, this beloved nerd, culture. And I looked at it, I was like, I would hate to live in that society. That society sucks. Like all those nerds that are depicted in the book are people that I stay away from, So I can't imagine what his poetry is like. It's anything like the book. Hooey. I did not like the movie that much, but the movie was better than the book. I'll give you that.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah, because I'm sure half the crap he wrote got filtered through. That's probably why it was better.
Yeah, and you know what? He seems the type of me that follows what people say about him online. So now that this will be out there, I'm not going to say his name, although I do remember it.
I don't know his name.
You're on watch, sir.
I'm happy to not know his name.
Yes.
I hope he finds out about this, and I hope he knows that I don't know his name, and I don't care what his name is.
See, this is why I think you made Spielberg cry, because it's stuff like that.
I don't say anything that mean about Spielberg. Spielberg made some great movies in his first 15 or so years directing.
Yeah. I was going through before we started recording, for this Twitter thing of, for the same director, all bangers, and I was going through and I was trying not to repeat, Indiana Jones for Spielberg, and man, you get to the later thing, it is tough to describe those as bangers. Yeah, so
he's got 4 buyers you can pick though.
Yeah. But I was trying to spread it out, right? Because I did my main 3, which are my 3 favorite movies of all time: Raiders, Jaws, and Jurassic Park. Trying to find a 4th one to pepper it up, and I tried to go later stage. And I was like, oh man, tough pickings.
You either go E.T. or you go Duel. That's your choices.
Yeah, I could have done Duel, but I was too busy focused on the later half, not the. So I went with Catch Me If You Can, which is a movie I enjoy. I don't know if I would call it a banger.
I thought I liked Catch Me If You Can, but I rewatched that a couple of years ago, and it did not hold up very well.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I'm afraid. I like most things that I watched at a certain time. I'm afraid to
honestly,
revisit.
the brightest thing about watching that movie again is that when I saw it the first time, I wasn't into comics, so I didn't get all the Barry Allen references. So that was the one bright spot of watching it again with my adult eyes. But that was it.
Gotcha. But yeah, so anyways, I watched a bunch of movies on the 4th of July, and then, watched a couple yesterday, and what
I did on the 4th of July, Matt? I voted.
Good for you. That's very patriotic.
Because our election was on the 4th of July, so it was more important than your hot dogs and fireworks.
That's, you know what? Other years I would disagree, but this year, not a lot to be proud of. So, but it seems like your guys' election went the way of the people I follow on Twitter's.
It was a landslide in the favour of kicking out the Tories, which are the Conservatives for anyone who doesn't know, who have been in power for quite a while. So, bit of a victory. So
I keep seeing this post that it looked like there was a guy wearing a mask that was made of beans, and I can't figure out if this was a Photoshop or something else.
I've not seen the thing, but I am familiar with former potential candidates for Prime Minister, such as Lord Buckethead. And I can tell you, Matt, that anyone, if they want to, can throw their name in the hat for election. And the amazing thing about it is that they have to be taken somewhat seriously. So you'll get like group shots of all the candidates, and there'll be a guy wearing like a black knight helmet. And they have to take him somewhat seriously, even though it's clearly just a joke.
Goodness, I kind of love it. If you want to make a mockery of things, that's the way to do it.
If only these idiot ones got more votes than the ultra right wing choice, which actually only helped us because it kind of split the Conservative vote a little bit. So don't get me wrong. Labour, which is the Democrat side, for comparison's sake, would have won anyway, but it was more of a landslide because they split that vote.
It's nice when you can split up the right wing because they will eventually turn on themselves. For as much as the left fights with one another, the right, man, they really go after one another when they split. So fingers crossed something like that happens here, because it's looking a little scary. I'm a little bit afraid.
Let's just move on. I don't have anything to say that.
No. I wish we had somebody wearing a bean mask, Although that said, they'd probably get the majority of the vote, and then we'd get really into it.
Yes, but would Beanhead be better or worse than some of the choices?
Beanhead or Fathead? I'm not sure which one. Both have the same skin tone, though, so that's great.
All right, everyone. Let's get into the show. We have the Kindle top 10, the Comixology top 10, whatever you want to call it. And apparently this was the week that DC went back to releasing books on Wednesday. However, it's still split by Tuesday, Wednesday on Kindle, which would suggest that the digital releases of DC books were still on Tuesday. Now, I've not actually sought out to confirm this. We literally just looked at this a minute before we started recording, and I went, wait, that's weird, it's still on Tuesday. So unless we're wrong about it being this week, will they shift to Wednesday? Or maybe just the digital is just going to stay on Tuesday and the physical release will stay on Wednesday. I don't know, but it's still split up. So that's the way we're going to have to look at it. Yep. You got a guess for Tuesday, Matt?
I'm going to guess Absolute Power 1.
It is, Matt. Yes, it is.
Okay.
Absolute Power.
You almost got me.
Yeah. Number 2 is Batman. Number 3 is Justice Society, which I guess John's name still carries some weight to it.
I guess.
Even with the inconsistencies. 4 is Birds of Prey. 5 is Boy Wonder. 6 is Shazam. 7 is Kneel Before Zod. 8 is Poison Ivy. 9 is Wonder Woman Volume 1. So we're at collections here. But hey, good collection all the same. Number 10 is My Adventures with Superman. So, yeah. So collection sneaking at the top 10. So not a ton of books, even though we definitely read more of them this week because a couple of notable things such as the event and JSA being back. But yeah, I mean, it just kind of shows that even with a few extra books, the first week of the month is still quite a quiet week, relatively speaking, for DC compared to Marvel. But, you know, nothing too surprising in the order, I would say.
No.
You know,
I would like Ivy to be a little bit more, but that seems it's got legs. It seems like it's going to be around for a minute.
I mean, so, yeah, it's been performing that way for a long time at this point.
Yeah.
Wednesday, do you have a guess for Wednesday?
I do know a new Marvel. Oops, wrong one. I think a new Marvel event drop, but I'm not sure. Because it's not coming up on here. So I'm just gonna throw out a guess and say that it's the what am I gonna go with? I'll guess Life of Wolverine.
Nope.
No. Is it Reign number 2?
Nope.
Really? Wow. Shocked to tell you. That's not an annual. I don't know. I have no more guesses because everything's kind of spread out, and my little cheat didn't work this time.
I don't know what that second one was. Reign what? What's this Reign book you're talking about?
So it's Spider-Man Reign 2, number 1. So it's a sequel to
I see it. Yeah, I see what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I just wasn't sure what you're talking about. No, number 1 is actually Moon Knight Fist of Khonshu issue 0.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know why either, but that's what's first here.
So I'm scrolling on League of Comic Geeks, and it is not coming up. Even there is finally it's down all at the bottom.
It'll be there eventually. Like, it's not that it's not.
That's what
up.
I mean. Yeah. But like usually books that finish in the top are within the first 3, right? Then the first 3 rows. This one is all the way down in row 6. So
I don't know.
Quite far down.
Part of me thought maybe it was like either free or next to free, but no, it's still $4.99. So I don't know why, but
I mean, it's got a really nice cover. I can imagine.
Yeah, but there's still other bigger names that are. So I don't know.
Jed McKay, Joe Kelly. Huh. Weird.
Yeah, I have no explanation for you. Number 2 is The Life of Wolverine issue 1. Number 3 is X-Men Bloodhunt Psylocke. Number 4 is Doctor Strange. Number 5 is Space Ghost. Number 6 is Spider-Man Reign 2. Number 7 is Bloodhunters. Number 8 is Annihilation 2099. Number 9 is Star Wars Inquisitors. And number 10 is The Amazing Spider-Man Annual. And I had to do a double take there because I thought I saw a Green Lantern on the cover of that book.
Yeah.
It isn't. It's just a very green dude with like a symbol on his chest, but it caught my eye off guard. So yeah, there you go. I don't have much. I mean, Moon Knight being number one is wild.
Very much so.
But other than that, I don't have much to say. Is Space Ghost what publisher? That's Dynamite. That's Dynamite.
Dynamite.
Yeah. I was just curious what that publisher was because I didn't know off the top of my head. I've never read a Space Ghost. Matt, have you read a Space Ghost?
I have not. I just remember Space Ghost Coast to Coast.
The Coast is
Cartoon
Toast.
Network show. So I just realized I left my iPad, so I'm gonna have to have it delivered real quick because I got ready to start prepping for the next part, and I was like, "Oh no!"
By Wife X.
Yeah.
Maybe ex-wife if you keep asking her to deliver iPads.
Yeah, right? I mean, it's only the next room over, but I can't get up since I'm hooked into the computer right now. So...
I don't know. You know. I tried to go for a wife pun into a delivery service, but UP wife didn't sound very good.
Up wife? Nah. Or fed. You keep asking for my iPad, she's going to be fed up, right? Nah, not FedEx.
Yeah, I don't think it fits. I don't think it... nah, it's not working. Maybe Bright would work better. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right.
I thought she was coming. I know she saw the text. So.
So now we have to sit and we have to deduce if Matt's wife is intentionally blanking him.
Hold on, I'm gonna yell. Let me.
Right. Okay. Well, as Matt was suspecting, we are going to be getting on to talking about the comics. There is no real news this week. Oops, that everything went dark there on the other screen. Don't mind me. Okay, Matt, how goes it? Are you shaking his hand at me? Okay, it's sketchy. Matt's wife's not playing ball. There's only so much vamping I can do. Oh, he's finally given up, and he's leaving the room. Wait, is he just standing at the door and yelling at his wife? You're already up at the door. Just go and get it. At this point, just go and get it. Is he trying to prove a point? Are we witnessing the demise of a marriage live before our eyes, ladies and gentlemen? I don't know. I'm losing my goddamn mind, I'll tell you that much. But yes. I'm ordering food later, everyone. I'm looking forward to wrapping up the show so I can order some dinner. I haven't decided what yet, so we'll see how that goes. It seems like Matt has retrieved his iPad.
There it is. We are good. Matt. Apparently she was in the middle of cleaning. And,
I have a question though, Matt. I have a question.
Yes.
You got up from your chair. You disconnected yourself from the computer. You went over to the door, and it looked like to me that you stood at the door and just yelled for her to come and give you the iPad. And all I could think was, you've already left the chair and disconnected. Why not just go get it yourself?
So I found out. I did get a text back that she was in the middle of cleaning a sink and she used the wrong chemical, and it came back on her. So she's having a coughing fit instead of bringing my iPad. So I had to check on her. But she still brought me my iPad. So multi-talented, you know.
Okay, right. No news this week, Matt.
Oh, no news? I thought I missed news. I should have planned this for the top 10.
I know. I would have stalled. I'd have stalled until you were ready. Don't you worry about that. Worst comes to worst, I'll even edit out a gap if need be. Although I think I handled that smoothly. I think that was a good bit of vamping on my part.
What'd you talk about?
Ordering dinner later. I also gave running commentary to what you were doing and made you look bad.
Gotcha. That's fine. I do that enough of myself. You can't do me much harm, you know.
All right. Absolute Power issue 1. Mark Waid writing with Dan Mora on the art. We have our big event of the summer, and it was a pretty good first issue, I thought.
Yeah.
I had a good time.
Yeah. It's crazy because I talked about the state of this country earlier, you know. And it's a little bit weird that the week that this came out, there was some troubling news that broke here in the States to do with our Supreme Court in what looks like setting the stages for a type of power grab. So it was weird that this came out the day after some of those were announced. And I don't know if just Mark Waid's that masterful of a storyteller, or if that's just the state of the world, where you could just write about bleak things and it feels omnipresent just because, of it. But yeah.
I don't think it's masterful in the sense that he predicted exactly when something was going to happen, but I do think that this story, even before any specifics about what's going on right now came out into the news, like, this isn't out of nowhere. Like, what's happening is not a surprise, and I feel like Mark Waid's just writing about fears that people have. There's a reason why this topic's going to work. This idea that Amanda Waller's trying to seize power, absolute power, one might say, with no... I mean, at one point in this issue, she even complains that superheroes they have absolute power, they go unchecked, they don't answer to anyone, and I'm like, bitch, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to not answer to anyone. You think you're the top of the food chain.
And that's what we see here. There's a certain political side that they project that type of stuff, that everything they accuse others of doing, they're doing themselves. So again, I feel that that's Waid tapping into a cultural, moment.
Yeah, there's a hypocrisy.
Not surprised. And yeah, but the way this ended, I found it oddly fitting, like the tone of the book matched the tone of the world. So yeah, that said, for as bleak as it gets, it looks really good. Dan Mora.
Yeah, it's great.
John, yeah.
So the start of this book, and I was like, oh yeah, I kind of recognize this first page because they had previews in like every book for like 2 or 3 weeks there.
Yep.
I never read it because I knew we were going to be doing the book anyway. Yeah. But so like it's these gunmen who have robbed a bank or whatever, and they're getting to a helicopter on a roof, and Superman shows up and he's like, hey, I can hear the silent alarms. Like, I know this is happening. But the big surprise is that when they shoot at Superman, even though one of the guys is like, what are you doing? There's no point. It does hit Superman. The bullet goes right through him, and then he falls out the sky. And that's kind of our big tease. And then it cuts back in time, 28 hours, to sort of build up to that point and what's going on. And we get like a build up. And the main premise of the book so far, obviously it's about Amanda Waller seizing power, but the premise of this first issue, specifically the start of her plan, is basically to spread fake news. It's to use AI and deep fakes to convince the public that superheroes are attacking people and basically drum up fear that superheroes are becoming dangerous. And we see the results of that almost instantly when Animal Man and his daughter arrive back in Keystone City, and this angry mob just starts beating them up with baseball bats.
That was pretty dire. Like, that was rough.
He doesn't know why. They don't know what's happening here, but they're acting like they need to do it because they're scared of him. And quite quickly, we hear other reports of this. We hear about Black Lightning being attacked. We hear about other characters being attacked.
Yeah, all of Black Lightning's entire family was attacked. So, but yeah, and so that also fits into like what we'd seen in Beast World, right? How some of them, especially post Beast World, how they treated Gar. When they went in to save the day. So it's, Waid also playing off of in story continuity things. I mean, there's already this distrust that Waller's put in.
Yeah, well, I don't even think that's Waid playing off of it, and I think that's just smart planning and the writing and editors as a team of like, I think the themes of Beast World and how Beast Boy's story, ended there and the aftermath of that naturally lends itself into this next part. It does feel connected where in maybe a way that I don't think the events have connected to each other since the 2000s, where it felt like, Infinite Crisis City 52 into whatever, like there was kind of a through line where it felt like there was people making and sort of orchestrating the story in a much grander scale. And
what I love here doesn't feel nearly as overt as that. It just feels like this is what's going on in the DCU. And Waller's been ever since, what was that last one? The Infinite Crisis, whatever, or no. What was the last one? There's too many.
Dark Crisis?
Dark Crisis, there we go. The Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yes, Infinite Crisis was in 2005, Matt.
Yeah, I remember. Again, lack of sleep here. But ever since then, Waller's been doing this stuff underneath. And like we've seen her, pop in and out and doing certain things, but it hasn't been nearly as overt as this goes to this goes to this goes to this. And if you weren't following any of these, let's say you skipped Beast World for whatever reason and you jumped in here, everything still works on its own, right? All of the AI and deep fake and all that type of stuff is reason enough. But just as someone that reads almost everything, it's nice to see that through line.
No, yeah, there's a good through line just overall for DC. If you're, I mean, I assume you'd still be reading some of the other books, but if you're reading the events because you want to be up in what the main going ons are, they do link up quite well here, just thematically, where it feels like this is a fallout thing that leads naturally from the past event. So, all the heroes are like, what's going on here? Batman's trying to figure it out. Dick's like, yeah, they're showing footage of the Titans doing bad things, but we were elsewhere doing something else. Supergirl's in space, yet there's footage of her blasting someone with heat vision and so on and so on. So there's a lot of this. But one of the things that gets into quite quickly is we go to the Daily Planet and like someone comes in and says, Lois, why aren't we running all these news stories like everyone else? And she's like, no, we're not running any of this shit. This is all until we can corroborate that any of this is actually happening. And because Lois is with Clark and they know for a fact that it isn't, like she knows not to run it. But then it turns out that someone's taking control of the Daily Planet website and is posting all this stuff anyway.
Just pumping it all out. And I also have here that it shows Lois's journalistic integrity on top of it. She's like, look, even if this stuff is true, until we can corroborate it, we're not running it. And, so that even shows that Waller is going even deeper than we previously thought.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, who could be doing this? Like someone overnight is taking control of everything. Who's powerful enough for this? And that's the first time in the issue you see Amanda Waller. Is her in a room surrounded by screens. And obviously there's like this executive order style letter that you hear in the sort of the narration up until this point. And when it gets to the Amanda Waller reveal, you have her signing the letter saying, oh, superheroes have been operating with no, we have to have a plan of action, blah, blah, blah. It just kind of sets up the tone that she's finally making her move that she's been wanting to make forever. Even to the point where the next scene with Sergeant Steele, where he's like talking to her about what her plan is, and she's introducing him to the fact that, this is setting up for the main book if you've not been reading all the lead up stuff. She's got, Raid of Brainiac. Matt, stop sniffing into the mic.
Sorry.
Jesus Christ. Right? You've got that. You've got, obviously, Failsafe pops out. So if you haven't read any of the stuff leading up to this, Waid does a good job of making sure you're on board, you understand everything. But even Sergeant Steele's a little concerned about all this, even though he's a complete prick. And Failsafe questions why he's uneasy about it. And he's like, well, if she wants to achieve certain things, that's one thing. But if she's got a desire to do certain things, then it'll never be fulfilled. Like, she's going to, let's say she succeeds in doing everything she wants to do. She completely destabilizes all the superheroes. She takes complete power. She runs the world or the country as she sees fit. That desire is not going to be fed. It's just going to evolve and grow into,
more hunger,
more power, whatever it might be. And even he can recognize that that's maybe unattainable or unsustainable, perhaps is a better word. So, yeah.
This almost feels like the start of Terminator, right? Because she is reaching out to these machines. The Brainiac Queen, Failsafe. By the end of it, we have those Amazobots. It almost feels like the singularity is upon the DC universe. So it's almost like she's ushering in a dystopia. Not we know that she's doing that because that's the whole point. But she's ushering in this new thing that it's almost going to become too unwieldy, right? Because what do we always know from robot in AI? And so as they start to determine that humans aren't capable of making decisions. So when does this turn on Waller?
Okay, it took me a while to get what you meant there. You just mean that she may inadvertently cause the robot apocalypse.
Yeah.
Okay, because I was like, you were saying everything after you said it's like the start of Terminator. I'm like, none of this sounds like the start of Terminator, Matt. What are you talking about?
Well, yeah. When the robots when they determine they don't need humans anymore, right? And Skynet launches the nukes and whatnot. But where does that end with Waller, right? Has she thought about that, all the way through? Or is this just a means to an end, right?
I mean, she thinks she has control. She thinks she has control of everything right now. Whether or not that remains true, if that's where we go, is that she loses control of these elements. Who knows? I don't know if that's where it's going now. We'll have to just wait and see where the story actually takes it. But, Oracle's trying to figure out what's going on and behind all this. She can't. Cyborg's basically being zapped by all the stuff that's on the internet because he can't control it either. He doesn't know what's going on. Whatever this is has got defenses, not just firewalls, but active combative defenses against him trying to hack into it. So yeah, and we see heroes around the world all struggling. Justice League International, basically, I don't know if they're going by that right now, but that's basically that team are dealing with stuff. So And then that's what it sort of wraps back up to the Superman bit at the start, where Superman falls out the sky after being shot, and Connor Kent and John find him, and they're panicking, like, oh, what do we do? We have to take him to a hospital or something. What do we do with him? And this is where we start getting these POV, and this is actually a lot more Terminator-esque, actually. It's these red POV shots of like someone targeting the super family. And of course, this was teasing the books leading up to this, but what we find out is that this is all these Amazos that a Waller's had built, and this is how Superman took the bullet, or it's at least implied that's how he got shot, is that these Amazos are draining the heroes of their power, like literally taking away their power, and there must have been one nearby that did so. So we see a lot of the other heroes around the world starting to struggle and losing their abilities. Amanda Waller comes on TV, makes an address to the world, if not maybe the nation, but I think it's the world, to be honest. And she's like, hey, I'm Amanda Waller, I'm here to help. You're all scared because of what these heroes have been doing. And, you know, like all of the metahumans won't have their powers anymore. If they have telepathy, they'll basically, it was the magic one, was like any people who use magic will forget how to cast magic. So like Hellblazer's like, what did I do with my hands?
He can't get out ahead of it, right? Like I like that, because it's like they're almost disrupting his thought patterns too.
Yeah, they've basically thought of a solution for every powered being on the planet that they want to depower. So yeah, there's a bit of build up, sort of like teasing the Amazos, and then you finally see them. There's a big 2-page spread where you see like a bunch of different Amazos in different parts of the world. One who's more Superman focused, who has like the red and yellow. One that's more Wonder Woman looking. One that's more Green Lantern looking. The idea being that they're all designed specifically to drain certain types of hero. One's a speedster related Amazo, so on and so forth. So you see Dr. Fate struggle, like everyone is being taken down. And I think what Waid does here really well to make it feel like a big deal is the realization from everyone, particularly Batman, that Waller's never been this forward about everything. And the only reason why that she would be acting this way is if she believes she's already won. And that's what makes it dangerous. It's not just that she's making this big move, is that she already thinks she's won it. And then, of course, the big... And this is so funny, having not read Green Arrow, just knowing that he's been talking to Waller just via hearing you talk about it. But Green Arrow's on Waller's side, and because all throughout the issue, the Justice Leaguers and the heroes have all been using this secret frequency that Waller doesn't know about. But then here towards the end, Green Arrow chimes in and says, no, she does know about this because I told her about it. And listen to me, that, you know, the day of the superhero is done. I'm on Team Waller now. We're coming for you, kind of thing.
It just doesn't gel with Ollie. Like, I know that's been setting up and throughout Green Arrow and whatever. I don't know. He's not the type that trusts government interference, right? And this is the ultimate government interference.
I mean, I don't think it's as clear as he's just switched sides, though. I feel like there's going to be more revealed about why he's doing this. For sure.
I just, with the voice there, and I trust Waid enough to doing it. But
in fact, I'll be honest, some of the dialogue was very specific. When Batman asks, like, you know, where are you, Green Arrow? He says, I'm on the right side of history, pal. And I can't hear the word pal at the end of a sentence without hearing Vince McMahon's voice. So that's all I could hear when he said that.
You're not wrong. But but I do like also the whole Batman putting together it's too late, right? It's kind of like in Watchmen where he goes, what do you mean? Yeah, stop it. It happened 25 minutes ago. You know. Yeah,
he's basically saying at this point all we can do is retreat and hopefully figure out a plan to like come back from this. I also like as well that, you know, like there's a panel of Waller shaking hands with Tharis, from the Green Lantern stories, saying, hey, she's made a deal with like the space, you know, United Planets and the villains in space to quarantine Earth. So that whole blockade where no one's allowed in or out of Sector 2814 is actually on her, and it's part of this plan so that there's no cavalry, there's no like army of Green Lanterns or friendly aliens coming to help. She's isolated Earth. She's, you know, they always say this thing, because you're right, Vince McMahon, with wrestling, that sometimes wrestlers just need to watch the show, right? Because they'll make foolish mistakes. If they were actually paying attention, you know, and they always joke that Kevin Owens is one of the wrestlers that watches the show.
Like he'll use the Titantron, you know, to see if someone's trying to get the jump on him. Waller's the type that watches the show, right? She's the one that's seen all these events happen in the DC universe, and the Green Lanterns come in and swoop in and save the day, or Kryptonians or whatever from elsewhere. And so she's cut that off. You know, she seems to have everything. Like, this is a solid plan with no, you know, no gaps in any of it as of yet. So yeah, it feels very dire and bleak.
Yeah,
by the end of it.
It sets up the stakes. You know, the final lines from Green Arrow making the speech to Batman, and I don't know if the others can hear him, but certainly Batman can, is that, you know, the powers are gone and they're never coming back. You're thinking right now you've beat Amazos before, but that was the old rules. This is different. And, you know, the final panels of the book is John being dragged away from a bleeding out Superman, Wonder Woman being, you know, bloody and battered from fighting an Amazobot, and who is that in the last panel? Is that Aquaman?
I think so. Yeah. Because he was shown there too, fighting the robots.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting though, this idea that your powers, all the powers are gone and they're not coming back. Obviously they're going to, because it's comic books, but it has made me go, oh, I wonder how it happens. Like, that's the hook here. It's like, okay, how do they get their powers back? Yeah. How do they fight out from under this? And part of that might be, you know, Batman might end up being quite central to this, because who in the DCU as a team are used to fighting without powers and can maybe save everyone else? It might be the Bat family who take the spearhead of that.
For sure. Too, here it shows that as part of her plan as well, Ollie brings up that they've shut off the time stream in the microverse as well, and it shows Ray Palmer. It shows that we read it in the special last time. It was that time guy, his little hourglass.
Time Commander.
He's got that too. Time Commander. So just the idea too that everything, you know, there isn't a Flash thing either.
Yeah. And also, just to say, you don't see Ray Palmer, you just see his outfit.
His outfit
on his finger. You know, so
but yeah, and you have a couple other heroes that we see pop in, like the Doom Patrol. It looks like got totally messed up. And
there's no way I mentioned every hero we see in these panels getting either attacked by civilians or attacked by Amazos and losing their abilities and powers.
Yeah, but I think some of the ones that they are showing that Waid is taking time to are the ones that you wouldn't necessarily think of, right? So maybe those are the gaps that Waller's not thinking of, right? Because what is Robot Man's whole gimmick outside of being a human brain is at a robot, right? She wouldn't think of him as a threat. But imagine him teaming up with Batman and the rest of the Bat family and all that other stuff.
I mean, I think if nothing else, it's just showing you how well thought out she's done this. She's not forgot. I mean, the Doom Patrol feels like the exact team of misfits that, like, in another version of this story, the Doom Patrol could easily be the team that the villain just never thought of, and they end up saving the day by, like, bringing all the other heroes back, by, like, saving them all. Like, that could easily be the story, and you could easily buy that, oh, Amanda Waller just didn't think of the Doom Patrol because of the weird misfit team that doesn't really get considered in the same way. But no, she's thought of them too. She's thought of she's thought of Booster freaking Gold of all people. You know, she's accounted for seemingly everyone, and it does beg the question that, okay, will cavalry eventually come through the blockade? Perhaps. I mean, that's an obvious thing that could happen at some point, but I think on its own as an event, obviously some of the lead up material which was written by other people has been very hit and miss, but it never made me not look forward to the actual event, because once we actually get into the event, it's Waid, it's Mora, it's them crafting a story, and I feel like Mark Waid was one of the architects, if you will. Not that, I mean, that was more of a Marvel term, but back in the day, but he was one of the architects back in that 2000s era of DC universe moving forward, and I do wonder, because he ended up having to leave and there was a whole big time period where he wouldn't come back because of Didio and whatever else, I do think it's interesting now that he's finally getting a chance to drive an event as the spearhead and be the one kind of calling the shots, and having the other creators obviously help out by doing tie-ins and whatnot. But between, like, Taylor doing the last event and Waid doing this event, I've not been as into the DC events in a while. There was that period before Beast World where it was a lot of Williamson doing events, and that was less good. I'll just say that. I'll be nice about it and just say it was less good. So
And it's also because you're talking about Waid back in the day, and he was one of the central minds at DC. This is also kind of reminiscent of the JLA story Tower of Babel, right? Where they used,
I can see the comparison, yeah.
Yeah, where I think it was Ross that used Batman's files on the JLA against them, right? So Waid has a knack for this kind of storytelling. So I'm very excited to see where it goes, especially it ends here, like you said, with Wonder Woman looking, beat up and the super family, almost taken out of the picture, right? So yeah.
Yeah, although it is interesting to hear that Supergirl's off planet, because that could be that could be important later if she fights her way back in and she hears what's going on. Maybe even some of the Green Lanterns as well, and that's just the obvious ones aside from whoever else might show up to help. But no, very very interesting. I think what was fascinating. Oh, there's actually a couple of other pages to talk about as well.
There's like a post credit.
There's a post credit because you get the next month and there's a couple more pages. We'll talk about that in a minute, but. Yep. I think what's interesting about this is that this first issue doesn't really spoil what main characters we're actually going to follow in solving this problem, because this first issue is devoted entirely, as it should be, and this is not a complaint, to just the inciting incident. It's Amanda Waller launching her plan and everyone falling. But I'm excited to see in issue 2, okay, what 2 or 3 characters are we going to really focus on who start fighting back or figuring out a plan or whatever the story course is going to be for the next few issues as we build up.
It's almost like Waller's the central character in this first issue, because we're following her acts and not exactly her point of view, but we're getting all of that because we're just in the dark as the heroes are.
Yeah. So, but now that they've been blindsided, how do we start to regroup? And I don't know which characters we're going to focus on. Like I say, I expect Batman's probably one of them, but I mean, he, it's Waid. He could really go any way he wants to with this.
Yeah.
So yeah,
he's really set the stage here.
Yeah,
that's all.
The post-credit scene, if you will, it's like a POV shot via panels of someone waking up, and it's got that red robotic vision. It's worth mentioning, that Terminator vision. But when we get the full page after it, it's John Kent, and he says, "Who am I?" So it seems like they have cyborged John Kent and turned him into a potential soldier for Waller, and I assume they're going to try and brainwash him into thinking that he belongs to her and that he's fighting on this side.
It's very reminiscent too, just what happened in House of Brainiac to Lex and Lena. He's all plugged in, and we know that Brainiac Queen was, that was how she was interfacing. So I'm wondering if this is, how they are what the next phase is, right? It won't be Amazos, it'll be the fellow heroes, or they're gonna brainwash him and make him actually do the acts, right? Instead of just AI type stuff.
Yeah, maybe they'll actually have him publicly do some bad stuff for them. If not, just be one of their soldiers. Yeah, there's a lot of cables hooked up to him. I imagine it is probably Brainiac Queen who's doing a lot of this, tech wise. That just makes sense. I don't know. It's an interesting place to go with it. I don't know. But it may be quite. If we do a story here where he's brainwashed potentially and doesn't know who he is, there could be a really uplifting moment later on when he finally kind of remembers who he is, kind of thing.
It's I'm John Kent. I'm Superman.
Yeah.
And I submit to I don't submit to you.
But then again, it is an event. It wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility to kill someone off by the end of this.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not thinking about that. I like John. Even I do too. Aging, we went up to the aging up. I don't want to think about it.
He's going wrong. If I'm killing a super family member off, it's Connor Kent. But
yeah. But see, maybe that was too easy. Maybe if it was Connor, we would see that and be like, oh, okay, well,
or
that's a sacrifice.
Let's hear me out, Matt.
Yeah.
For the third time in less than a year and a half, we kill Guy Gardner.
Okay. No, I'm okay. Hey, I'm gonna see my first live action Guy Gardner, so I'm fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. Did you see the set photos of his outfit?
I saw the set photos of Philly and.
Worth mentioning that they seem to match what I'm assuming is the movie's versions of the Terrifics, because they all have the same design. Their outfits, so
the Terrifics or Max Lord, because it seems a very JLI style team. So I'm wondering if it's more like a corporate version.
The only reason why I'm thinking Terrifics is because one of the photos had like a blue screen, like big thing with a T-shaped hole in it. So I was thinking it's some sort of Mr. Terrific style ship or portal or something like that. But I mean, it could still just be his tech with, in the context of JLI or something. But regardless, it was.
But if we had to watch Gardner die twice over the course of the year, but we get fill in with the bowl cut, I'm okay with it.
Oh yeah, he looks punchable, and that's exactly what Guy Gardner should be.
Smarmy.
All right. No, I mean, I thought this was a great first issue of an event. It had everything you want from it, I think. It felt big. It felt the heroes are down in their lowest moment. Waller's play feels like it's something that it's almost shocking there's not been this storyline from Waller sometime before in the previous 30 years at DC Comics. But here we are, and maybe part of the reason why it's happening now is because it's more relevant than it's ever been, is her seizing power like this, the analogies and whatnot. But regardless, I think it is a natural big event to do as a Waller making this power play. I'll be curious to see when we wrap this all up where she is in the universe. Is she alive? She could die potentially. If she doesn't die, then is she in prison for doing this? Does she still get to run a Suicide Squad? Is she seen as a villain in the eyes of the government at the end of this arc? I mean, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of possibilities.
She is put on the Suicide Squad. So she likes having a bomb in her neck. That said, so traditionally in Mezos, they only have the power of the superheroes. They don't have the power to drain.
Oh, that's new. Yeah, that's a new thing. Yeah.
How is she draining their powers, right? Because they're all different. Like to go after a Kryptonian, we know about Red Sun and all that Kryptonite, all this other stuff. But to be able to depower all these other ones too, I'm wondering what is she using to do that?
Well, right? They explain it a little bit with some of them, right? They explain it where. The magic users don't remember how to cast the spells. It does seem like there's slightly different solutions that are explained here. It shouldn't go into necessarily how different but I imagine a lot of the metahumans, it's probably just a case of neutering the meta gene is probably the blanket thing. Obviously, how has Wonder Woman's abilities been taken? That's a bit more murky. Maybe we'll get more on that. Maybe we'll find out more about how these Amazos were built, what they've got unique to them. I'm trying to think if there's anything in the DCU that blanket just robs people of powers in the past that maybe might be incorporated into this, but nothing's springing to mind.
Nothing for me either, so that's why I'm wondering if this is just her diabolical plans coming to fruition after years, right? So.
But, between like all the planning we've seen her do and these like various specials and backups, it just feels kind of nice. It feels nice to be finally at the event. It feels like things are big. This reminds me of the first issue of a Blackest Night or an Infinite Crisis or something of that era, and
something that's gonna really rock the status quo, because that's the thing. A lot of these events over the course of the last at least since Rebirth started haven't really rocked the status quo that much.
Yeah, I think that's what I think there'll be a new Justice League at the end of this book. Some a new team, a new roster's announced. I can see there'll be a new book announced.
Yeah, the fact that Batman said she's not even playing chess anymore also makes me think of Checkmate. Like maybe this establishes a new version of Checkmate that kind of keeps tabs and tries to balance things as well. So we'd have a Justice League, a Checkmate, all these other.
I mean, maybe it's even building to a Waid Justice League book. I don't know, but regardless, it does feel like there's probably going to be some big ramifications at the end of this. And obviously, Mora's art is pretty stunning throughout. This is a dream team for an event book.
So we brought up like Doom Patrol, but I feel like Waid just wanted to see Mora draw Doom Patrol again because they look so good in World's Finest, And so a lot of the art here. We get to see so many different characters that doesn't feel overwhelming.
Yeah, actually, just mentioning Waid, because you made me think, he likes Doom Patrol, and that's why we see them. As per usual with Waid, there was at least one character mentioned by Batman at one point that I just didn't recognize the name of, and I'm like, that's just Waid. He's deep pulling some character that I've never heard of. I've been reading DC Comics now for 20 years.
A while.
God,
don't put a number on it.
I'm old, Matt.
And I've been reading them longer than you have, so let's not. All right, I don't want to think about it.
But Batman mentions a character when he's on the comms at one point. I'm trying to find the page. I can't find it. It doesn't really matter. But he mentions a couple of names, and like one of them I recognize, but the other one I was like, I have no idea who that other character is. I'll just take Waid. I'll just trust Waid. So it's just Waid with his deep knowledge of the DCU, playing in the sandbox. But you know, with stakes. Like I've enjoyed his World Finest book. It's a fun book, but I think that it's maybe sometimes hampered a little bit by being this set in the past book where, like, ultimately it can never have super high stakes because it can never really alter anything dramatically. It can never change stuff. It just has to be a fun Batman Superman team up book. Here it's like, oh no, he gets to shake things up. He gets to have consequences to things that might shape what the DCU is for at least a couple of years going forward. You know, obviously things always get reset, things get fixed, whatever, but you know, so no, I'm digging it. It feels like a mid 2000s DC event, and so to an extent so did Beast World, and I really like that as well. So I'm glad some of these writers that I really like are getting to be the ones driving the events. So yeah.
What was the character Freddie Martin?
Oh, that sounds
I pulled Doc Magnus and Freddie Martin. So I just looked up. I don't see a Freddie Martin there. The one that comes up is the character Data. So that might just be it.
I mean, it's bolded, so I trust Waid knows who he's talking about. He's not just made up a name. There's a reason why it's there bolded. He knows who that is. Maybe it's Frederick Martin. I don't know, but regardless.
Yeah. So it's one I've never heard of, and I just Googled, and not a lot came up. So it's definitely a Waid deep pull. Yeah. You know?
Also, on that last page with John hooked up to all the cables, you actually can see Brainiac Queen just off to the side in the background. She is there. Not that we needed it confirmed that it was her, because it looks like her tech, but yeah, she is there just on the side. All right, what are you rating Absolute Power issue 1?
I'm going to give this an 8.5.
I'm going to give it a straight 9. I think that as far as an issue 1 in an event goes, I think this is exactly the big feel you want from it. Obviously, if you're the type of person who just never likes comic book events, I don't think it'll sway you, but I think this is a good issue 1 of an event. Now, are we going to like everywhere it goes? Is it going to stick the landings and whatnot? I trust that it's not going to be bad, because I don't think Waid would write a bad book, but, you know, is it going to be A-tier Waid? Is it going to be B-tier Waid? I mean, we'll find out, but so far, so good.
Yep.
So, that's Absolute Power. I was going to say Infinite Power. Hey, that's a sequel. They could do Infinite Power next time.
I feel that's her game plan, right?
Infinite Power. Like corporations want infinite growth, even though that's obviously not sustainable. All right. Number. I don't number the books usually. That's weird.
Book number 2.
Yes. Anyway, Batman issue 150, legacy number 915. Chip Zdarsky writing with Jorge Jimenez and Dennis Cowan on the art. So Matt, this is a bit of a milestone issue. So we have a longer page count, and there is still a backup, which is what because it says tie-in to Absolute Power on the front. It's actually the backup that's the tie-in. The main story does not tie into it in any way. Honestly, not a bad main story. I thought this was pretty good. Mainly because it just didn't have anything to do with anything else that Zdarsky's been doing with the run.
No failsafe, no Zerdar, just you know.
Just
this. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's an interesting story that follows this crook who was being trained by Catwoman. So it does reference the Catwoman war a little bit, but it's this idea that he's just down in his luck, and this is like, you know, where he is now. And the plot of the issue is that when he was searching the Wayne like brownstone back in that event, he discovered that Bruce Wayne is Batman, and he knows that, and he wants to sell that information to one of the big players in Gotham, and it gets out that he knows, so everyone knows that he knows who Batman is. And it's basically just him trying to go to different villains and sell that information and what happens because of that. And also this idea that Batman knows that he knows, and what is Batman going to do? And he keeps showing up wherever this guy goes.
I love how menacing Batman felt in this. And he wasn't doing anything. He was just kind of following him, and you'd see him from afar. But he felt like ever present. And so kudos to Zdarsky for that one. And I was going to say, it kind of reminded me of his... it was in... not The Brave and the Bold, the other one. The Gotham book. Urban Legends, that it was his Red Hood story where they were chasing down that drug, right? And the kid was him. Zdarsky does street level really well, right? And this is what I expected from him coming to Batman. And instead we've gotten these big, kind of more sci-fi driven stuff. So I was pleased to see him get back to the street level and it be something that I enjoyed reading.
I mean, for the record, I would enjoy the sci-fi if it was good sci-fi, but it's not.
I know, but like when I think Chip Zdarsky, I think more of like his Daredevil.
Yeah, no, I get that he's better at street level. I'm agreeing with you, but I'm just saying that I'd be okay with a more science fiction focused Batman run if I actually like the science fiction of it. But I don't like his science fiction. I think it's messy. I don't think it works.
And it helps too that the Dennis Cowan art is very of that street level kind, right? Because I associate Dennis Cowan with the Question. So seeing that it was kind of rougher and sketchier throughout really lended into that whole tone.
What this kind of does is that it basically does that, that Batman animated series episode, Legends of the Dark Knight, or whatever it's called, where it's the kids telling the stories and different legends of Batman. Or maybe even the episode of that show where it's the villains saying how they almost got him, right?
Almost got him. That's my favorite episode.
It's a little bit like that in the sense that there's a lot of characters talking about Batman in this issue. We see, again, you see him in the background. He's obviously keeping an eye on things. But it's more about the impact that Batman's aura has on the city and on this character and how valuable this information of who he really is. And the bit that really reminded me of that is early on where he's telling the bartender that he's going to go and like sell this information. And the guy's like, oh, don't be silly. Like, I remember one night, he landed in the alleyway outside and a couple of the thugs went out to try and like see who he was and they go to lift up his mask. And he's like, oh, but when he got up, it was like a demon coming to life, and he stopped them, and he really sells the legend of Batman in this moment. And this was the moment in this issue where I think I like this issue so far, and I'm confused because I've not liked Zdarsky's issues in a long time. But it sets up that story, and it sets up that this guy has a troubled history with his wife and his son, where he's estranged. He's not seen his son in a long time. He didn't even know his son had moved out to college. And the wife's like, hey, he used to worship you, and like, I'm still scared that he's going to like start imitating your life at some point. I don't want him to do that.
Following in your footsteps,
Yeah. So it's this character who's kept making bad choices and kind of admits that. But we see him go to Two-Face, and Two-Face is like, oh, we already know who he is. And I'll also just mention on the art here, and I think this is a Jimenez page because it looks very different to the other stuff. Is that there's this break going down the page that goes past down Two-Face's like face, right, down the split, but it sort of arcs and goes sideways for the rest of the page, and it splits over where Batman's cowl meets his nose. So this again, so the idea that Batman's separated by bottom and half as opposed to left and right. Bottom and half, you know what I mean, top and bottom.
So because in the dialogue that he says, Two-Face says, time and time we fight, the two of us, the four of us.
Yes.
And I was like, oh man, I've never put that together before. That they, that there is almost four beings at odds there, right? You have Bruce and Batman, and then Harvey and Two-Face, and there's almost like this mutual, not respect, but there's this thing between them. And I like here how that split goes. Yeah,
and Two-Face is like, I already know who he is, and we can't have you ruining this dual identity. So he pulls out his gun, and the speech bubbles are definitely written as if it's Harvey saying, "No, we won't. We won't kill him. Let's not do that." So it's like, okay, Two-Face was a bust, and Batman's watching from the rooftop above. Great little half-page panel that is.
Like a gargoyle, right? That's got to be so uncomfortable to sit like that. But Bruce is a man in his 40s, right? Like,
probably late 40s by this point. I mean, come on, given the age of everyone else. So his second stop is to go to the Iceberg Lounge and go to the Cobblepot kids, right? The
twins,
brother and sister, and he's like wanting to sell us information. They seem very receptive to it, and they're like, yeah, we do want to know. But someone that this goon that's there used to work with him as a henchman for someone else. He's like, hey,
for Firefly,
they're going to kill you. Like, once they've got the information, you could tell someone else, so they want to keep it to just them. So they're going to murder you. You have to get out of here right now. And of course, just as like this decision's being asked in his head, that's when there's an explosion, and we get some of these other characters coming in. These other like henchmen that have formed a team.
I kind of love this, right? Like they're all failed. Well, not failed. They're all henchmen that have branched off, but you could tell who they used to work for because they've nicked some of the gear.
Yeah,
from their respective villains.
There's a guy with some Bane stuff on, not all of it, but he's got a little bit of Bane stuff. Yeah. There's a guy who worked for the Joker.
Scarecrow.
Yeah, and Scarecrow as well. Yeah, yeah. There's a whole hodgepodge of it. Yeah, because doesn't one of them say that his fear gas only makes people anxious? It doesn't actually.
Yeah, instead of afraid. Yeah. I'm sorry, but my fear toxin I took makes people a little bit anxious. Which is, again, these guys are kind of lovable losers, with the exception of the Joker guy, who feels like, he is kind of like Joker. You don't know what he's going. He's not like the rest of them, from what we can tell.
Yeah, the main guy's like, hey, but what if Batman kills me for knowing? And like one of the hench people, like I guess the woman is like, nah, like you don't really know him then. Like he's scary, but he doesn't kill people. And tells this story about Mr. Freeze and Batman like swooping down to save someone.
Save her. So she got knocked off of the building, right? And now she is following. Batman saves her. I was like, proves that he's not a killer. He's a nice guy monster. And I was like, oh, that is a perfect description of Batman.
Yeah, so this is a great thing where they're going on this heist and they take this guy along, like, oh yeah, we're going to rob this place. And they go into like, this bank or whatever it is, expecting to find their loot. And I actually love this. It's maybe my favorite panel in the whole issue, is they open the doors to this place and Batman's just standing in the middle of an empty room.
Yep.
And they're like, shit. What did we do? So, Batman takes them out and our main guy's just cowering in a corner somewhere. And Batman like towers over him, he gets knocked out, and when he wakes up, he's in his son's hotel dorm room. He wakes up and his son comes in and we have this confrontation where the son's mad at him. He's like, yeah, of course I didn't tell you. Like, I used to idolize you, and I always took your side against mom. But as he's gotten older, he's realized like, who his dad is and how unreliable he is, and everything he's done with his life, and so on. And he's scared of becoming him, and it's a whole thing. So. But he's like, hey, how did you even afford to come here? Maybe you've got delusions of grandeur. And what we find out is that this guy, the son, did actually try and become a henchman. He went to work for Scarecrow, seemingly during the whole Fear City stuff.
Yeah, the Fear State.
Yeah, that's the name of it. Yeah, quite right. And, Batman came in and beat everyone up because it's a Scarecrow villain situation. But he got scared. Like he got, he got a bit of the fear gas in him, and he got really scared. And Batman, instead of beating him up, like reached out his hand and had a talk with him about who he is and why he is the way he is. And he says that Batman just listened to me. He just listened to what my problems were, and he offered to get me a scholarship. And obviously, this is Bruce Wayne paying for this,
right?
And he's like, yeah, but there's a catch, right? Like, what do I have to give you for like giving me this opportunity to go to university? And Batman just said, be better. That's it. That's all you owe me, is be better. And he has this realization about his father and about all that. And when the main character leaves the dorm room and he comes out and he's still thinking of that phrase, be better, he just sees Bruce Wayne, not Batman. This is notable. So it's broad daylight now. He's not Batman. But just like before, he's waiting outside for him. And he comes out and sees Bruce, and he just goes up to him and says, I've got to go, don't I? I shouldn't have said to anyone that I knew. Now everyone knows that I know, so they're all going to keep coming for me to find out. And he's like, yeah, look, I've set you up with an apartment in a different city in Metropolis, a new identity. Maybe someday you can come back, but you do have to probably go. Not for Batman's sake, but for his own sake. Because
his own sake and his family, right?
Yeah. So, and it's this idea that maybe, because I think there's a line earlier on where the wife says to him, you're 48, it's not too late to like make a new start, to start again and be better. And this is this idea that this guy is going to leave the city and he's been offered this opportunity by Batman. Because I think part of this is also the idea of the nicer side of Batman, that he's not just a monster who's scary and beats people up, that he does try and make a difference where possible. And that he is forgiving, I suppose, in a sense.
On that thing where he tells the kid to be better, and you see all the stuff that Batman's doing, like he drops off a bag of cash to an unhoused woman.
Yeah.
Right. And he's comforting a kid by putting his cape around him like it's a coat. So it's all these little things that Batman's doing that's not just punching and kicking the villains.
The cape thing with the kid's very Superman actually, but it almost sticks out more because it's Batman. It's almost like it feels more harsh when Superman snaps and like swears or something. Not that he does that often, but you know what I mean. Like, but if Superman says, like, he gets angry, right? You never see Superman angry, so it really means something. But likewise, if you see Batman, who's always angry and brooding and dark, if you see him be sweet, it's actually more heartwarming than when Superman does it. You know, it's when they're not doing the thing you normally associate them with doing. Yeah,
it means more, right? Because we're drawing attention to that. So that's the whole be better is that whole side, and then him coming to talk to, I think this guy's name is Teddy, where he's like, yeah, you goofed, right? Well, I'm not the type that I'm going to take vengeance, but if you're going to be better, then go. You know, here, let me help you like he helped his son. And this is the type of stuff that I like seeing Batman do.
Yeah, final page is the bus leaving Gotham with the bat signal in the sky, and just the last things that Bruce said to him, sort of in the narration, saying, enough time passes, you can go back, and when you do, Batman will be there to help. This idea that it's basically this guy started off with not only is he scared of Batman, he thinks Batman might kill him, and that he has this dangerous secret knowing who Batman is. But at the end, Batman, as Bruce Wayne, doesn't threaten him, doesn't like say, hey, you better not tell anyone or I'll beat the shit out of you. He's there to say, hey, you're in a bit of trouble because you've told everyone you know this. So basically, I think if nothing else, he's earned the idea that this guy will never like tell anyone now, because now this guy actually probably respects Batman and Bruce Wayne and understands them better.
There's a bond of trust there.
So. Chip Zdarsky's best issue of Batman. I said it.
Easy, by far. So
it's not even close. Like I just it's head and shoulders above everything else. Not to say there wasn't some fun action issues way back in the first arc that he did, but it's also mired and all the stuff that it built to and all the stuff that it's connected to. This is pretty standalone. Outside of the mentions of him being trained by Catwoman, it doesn't really connect to anything that much.
Yeah, but you know, when you think about that in the big sense of it, right? Is that Catwoman was teaching them to be cat burglars, so they didn't have to go work for the Two-Faces and Jokers and stuff, right? It was teaching them to steal from the rich to prop themselves up. So she, you know, by doing this, she also kind of had a hand in it.
You're saying she was a gateway drug to the good side.
Yes, because she made him reevaluate. So she woke him up, but it was, you know, it took him messing up, right? Him falling back down. And, you know, to tie it back into Nolan, right? Why did we fall? To pick ourselves back up. So,
Master Wayne.
And through Batman, that's what he does. You know, so I guess you could say through Batman, all things are possible.
Sure. Yeah. So there is backup tying in to infinite power. Or I keep saying that. Absolute power, right? It's just ingrained in my head now. Oh my God,
you have IP on the brain, Pete.
Oh, dear. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to sully my experience here by reading this back up.
You son of a...
I thought, you know what? I don't need this backup. I don't need this tie-in to Absolute Power.
One day I'm going to come in and go, hey, Pete, what did you read? And I'm going to read nothing. And I'm just going to sit here and have you tell me about comics for the week.
No one wants that, Matt. They want your opinions on things.
I think it would be funny. It's
just a backup. What are you talking about? I mean, I had more books to read this week. This was already a bigger page count. Like I was good. I didn't need it. I didn't need it in my life. So, why sully? That's that good story. The first good Batman Chip Zdarsky issue, and who knows how long with a fail-safe backup.
Well, it's not a fail-safe backup. It is a Batman backup, and essentially we bring up Joe Chill in the alleyway. And
I'm so glad I didn't read this stuff.
And so he said the first thing that Bruce did when he came of age was he found out as a kid what type of gun killed his parents, and he bought the firearm company. And he tore that building brick by brick. But you know, they didn't pay because they profited because he bought the company. And he goes, so you know how can I stop people from profiting like this? And essentially, you know, since he willed his own gun into the world, he feels that kind of responsibility now. And it brings up fail safe, right? And the Amazo robots. And so through this is Bruce trying to figure out what Waller's up to, and he goes to see Cyborg, and Cyborg's getting attacked on all sides, right, by Brainiac Queen and all the different firewalls. And you find out that Waller's using a mother box. They don't know how she got it, why she has it, but it's the Cyborg's getting traces of it off of Gamora, the island. And then as they're talking, the
not the Guardian of the Galaxy, I assume.
Yes, not Gamora. Yes, well, why is Gamora? But so Batman also realizes when the Wonder Woman Amazo pops in to fight that the word choice is weird, that it's talking like it's Victorian. And he tries to save Cyborg, but the Wonder Woman Amazo gets the better of them. And they end up getting away. But Bruce ends up talking with Flash, because now that their comms are down, Flash is acting as a go-between between the other heroes.
Okay.
And so talking to Diana, and he lets them know that he thinks that they found Waller's power source, even if it isn't, it's incredibly dangerous in her hands. They have Clark in what looks like the Fortress of Solitude with Mr. Terrific, and they agree that someone needs to go get that mother box from her. And Batman goes, well, that's great, because I'm going to recruit a thief. So it kind of leads the way that he's going to get Wonder Woman wrapped up into this.
You mean Catwoman?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Catwoman. Sorry. Because I was going back about the Wonder Woman Amazo, that he seems to think that they're imprinting different heroes' personalities onto this, and that it's what's that here? Is that Failsafe tells the Wonder Woman robot, which name is Paradise Lost, it says, now we're at war and ignoring orders ends lives. You're a Batman. You save lives. So I'm wondering if this is going in with that, the whole Zur-En-Arrh plan of throwing these different Batman personalities into the different villains or whatnot that they were planning. Because I that's a weird thing, because I wasn't getting any of that from the main issue. Right, so I wonder if this is just a weird Zdarsky thing.
I know
that he's doing on the side.
It does sound like there's more important details in here than I would have assumed. Although I wonder how many of the things that seem important from what you just said will just come up in issue 2 anyway, so it wouldn't matter that I've not read it.
But yeah, just the main thing is that there's a mother box, and that Batman's going to get Catwoman. It looks like he's going to ask her to go steal it for them.
Okay.
And that they're using Flash as communication. I thought it was pretty fun too. But yeah, nothing that big. I mean, Cyborg got taken at the end, so we'll see what comes from that. And I wonder if he'll be plugged in like John towards, we'll see any of that. But yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, in that case, will you rate Batman?
I'm gonna give this a solid 8.
Yeah, it's weird to say it, but I'm also gonna give it an 8 out of 10. It's a good issue. Maybe if we just not do any more failsafe or Zur-En-Arrh stuff, maybe Zdarsky will have a good few arcs in him.
Yeah, stick to that street level stuff. You're really good at it, man.
Yeah. All right, Birds of Prey issue 11, Legacy number 209. Kelly Thompson writing with Javier, Pina, and Gavin Guidry on the art. So we've jumped into a new reality. It was Sin that went in first. She was worried that it was going to be the Madeira thing in her head instead of her own, and it ends up being hers, although it's not clear immediately why or how it's hers, because it's like dinosaur land. But she reveals later on that because she was worried that it would be based on the other entity and not her, she intentionally just tried to really focus on something as she was going through the portal, and she's reading a paleontology book, so that's why it's all dinosaurs.
I love it.
Which is funny, because it means that it's a very dangerous world that they're in, and like they almost get eaten when they first arrive. But as Black Canary points out, that this actually has taught them something, that she basically picked this world as she was going through the portal. It didn't just like pick something for her based on who she is. It was something she was actively thinking about. So in theory, when they go through another portal, whoever goes through first could think of a certain type of world, and it might actually become that world. They
can play it to their advantage.
Yeah. So there's potential there. Yeah.
We got Barda threatening to punch dinosaurs, which, please, the more Kelly Thompson writes Barda, the more she becomes one of my favorite characters.
Yeah, it's good. Everyone's got sort of like ripped versions of their outfits. You know, Cass is missing like a sleeve and things. It's like they've all been like in prehistoric times for a while.
Yeah.
The overall vibe of this issue is that it deals with the fact that Vixen can't connect to the red, and it's going to be important that she's actually pretty vulnerable without it. She almost gets eaten early on. Black Canary has to like stream the face of a dinosaur off to save her, and it's basically this idea that while some of the others don't have powers, like Cass still has her skill set. She's just not having powers, but Marie, because she relies on them, it's almost like something's missing now, so she's actually kind of vulnerable. And we spend a lot of the issue with her sort of going off to meditate and try and like reconnect with the red, which by the end of the issue, the big cliffhanger is that she has in fact found her connection once again. The art shows that really well. But just early on when they're fighting the dinosaurs, though, it's right after the bit where she gets saved by Dinah, there's this great 2-page spread of like them fighting some dinosaurs, but there's like a big dinosaur in the middle. I don't know if it's quite a T-Rex, but
no, it has like the kind of horns on the top, which would make it more of an Allosaurus. But I mean, who's counting?
Yeah. But there's a great bit here where you can actually track Cass jumping through the page, where she grapples in the top left. You see her flipping over a bit lower down, then she sort of jumps over the dinosaur's neck, and she sort of jumps down until she's eventually at the bottom right, and she's like stabbing the top of the dinosaur in the head. So it was a really great flow of action in the art here. So no, I really liked all that stuff. And honestly, I mean, one of the things that this book's been so good at has been how funny some of the dialogue's been between the characters. You know, they agree at the start that they shouldn't run anymore. They have to, like, they can't save Babs and figure out what's going on if they're just always on the defensive. They have to kind of start to solve things. So some of the banter here is pretty funny. Like, you know, just when they go into like this cave up in a mountain to sort of like try and regroup, and they're like, "Do you think it'll hold?" And Barda just goes, "Depends on what pushes it." And there's just a narration box from Black Canary going smart ass. And like just little things like that are really funny.
It shows that it really is a camaraderie in the team.
Yeah.
Right.
Kelly Thompson just knows how to bounce characters off of each other in a way that makes them all more likable. And that's something that's been true in West Coast Avengers, in her Hawkeye book, even Gambit and Rogue. And I do not give a shit about Gambit, but even that book was good. And we see that because the world's changed, and we established last time that anything they have will still be effectively what it was, but it will change to a time era appropriate version of it. So whatever it was that Barbara had last issue is turned into a big stone axe. And she starts using it to smash through the because instead of cell bars, now it's like
stalactites and you know, cave stuff from the cave, so she smashes through it, but she ends up being at like the top of a mountain.
I am impressed you knew the word for that. I was just going to say pointy rocks, but very good.
Stalagmites and stalactites, right? Stalactites are the ones that go up or that start up and go down. Stalagmites go down and come up. So geology.
So she's swinging this big stone axe. We do cut back to the real world for a little bit, and this is where the other artist obviously comes in. And Zealot's in a mood. Constantine's trying to like deal with a portal, but is getting nowhere. And you know, Meridian's like, "Oh God, maybe we have to think of something else here." And like they're all just unhappy. And she's like, "Hey, I've got something else I want to try. Someone else maybe I can go get." And I think Zealot just cracks a joke, she's not even trying to be funny. She's like, "Oh, she's going to get another hero to come and stare at the portal and solve nothing." But yes, so she's just miserable, so it really sets all that. Oh, sorry, I tell a lie. It was Constantine that had the idea at the end to go and find someone else.
Go find someone else. But I do like that too, because she calls him Hellblazer, and he goes, "Let's stick to Constantine in relative public," which is funny because she came from Wildstorm, he came from Vertigo, you know, just in that kind of meta sense. And she talks about like how, you know, she thought the worst thing dealing with Canary was going to be, you know, having to kill Amazons, and now they're stuck in this time portal thing. So I thought that was pretty fun. Just again, Zealot being miserable.
Yeah. Interestingly, Constantine gets his idea after he confirms that Cassandra Cain's in there. So maybe the idea has something to do with Cass.
Which they knew each other though too. From I don't know how much in continuity that is, but in Spirit World, it dealt with.
I mean, I think those are in continuity. Those books. So.
Yeah. So in Spirit World, we had Constantine dealing with Constantine dealing with Cass and the other new character. So I'm wondering if that is gonna she has some type of tie to Spirit type thing. Maybe there's a signature energy he can latch onto. But yeah.
Yeah. Dinah gives Vixen a bit of a pep talk because she's feeling down, and saying it's understandable that she needs help and that she's struggling with her powers. So that's when she goes up to the sort of the cliff top to like meditate and try and reconnect with the red. And this is also where she has the conversation with Sin, where Sin explains why they ended up in Dinosaur World. Like, okay, why are we here? I don't associate dinosaurs with you. And she's like, oh, well, because, and she goes into the book and she was thinking about it. So maybe they can use this. So sometime later, I love the art here, actually. That panel with Vixen opening her one eye as she realizes she's reconnected to the red, I thought was a stunning bit of
and she's all bathed in red on top of it. Like, we've gotten some red aspects to the whole dinosaur world, but just the fact that she's all bathed in it after reconnecting with its touch as well.
Yeah. Also, I have to point out, there was a conversation earlier at the campfire where Bard is just saying how much she wants to smoosh Mia, the villain's face in, and Cass sort of like goes, is like as if to say maybe you shouldn't say that because our sister's with us, and the sister's like, wait, she also murdered all the sisters I like. I also want to like smash her face in, and then Barda goes, fine, we'll each take one eye.
Yeah.
I thought that was really funny. I don't know.
Barda.
Yeah, because that was the thing. Like, I really want to compliment Thompson here actually for on the very first page, like even though it's not a recap page, just having Black Canary in her narration give you the bullet points of like all the beats so far. Yeah. While it is a little bit weird when you're reading it as a collection, month to month, it's so helpful for her to just say, oh, we're in this world, we're going through different realms. But the part that I was like, okay, the part that I was so happy she recapped, just to like, because it all came flooding back as soon as she said it, was, okay, we're with this character, her sister's the villain who wants revenge on Barbara, because in the future, Barbara and the Birds are going to be responsible for the death of her mother. And that's all it took for all of that flashback story we got that took up most of an issue, all came flooding back. But it reminded everything so quick and neat. It's just good form, I think, for a monthly comic book.
Yeah, and it didn't feel like an info dump. It felt like she was processing things for the characters.
Well, and that's the thing. She doesn't have to recap everything, but she has to recap the new characters, right? The characters that we don't know from years of reading comics, the ones that we are going to forget because they're new. So yeah. Anyway, the villain shows up here towards the end as a snake, and Canary screams at her, but the villain's like, "Hey, you can only scream so loud in here without bringing the whole mountain down. So you actually can't. You have to hold back." So she's like sending this like dark energy over to her. It's like
it was the same thing that got Barda in one of the other issues.
Yeah, that she had to cough out.
Slightly possessed her. Yeah.
Yeah. So the big cliffhanger is that just as it seems like they're going to struggle to fight her, that's when Vixen comes in with the power of a pterodactyl coming down at her. So
it looks so cool.
With the line, "Take us to Barbara Gordon or die." Which is a bit more violent than superheroes tend to get, but she's pissed. She's in a mood. I get it. She's had a rough day.
Well, she's channeling a pterodactyl. Like, come on, that's some serious primal energy.
I'm sorry, there are pterodactyls known for being angry.
Look, I've seen Jurassic Park 3 enough times to know that they're the most dangerous things because they kept them locked up. So, every other creature in Jurassic Park 3 out roaming around. Not the pterodactyls or pteranodons, whatever they were.
To be fair, I think technically they were all locked up to begin with.
Yeah, but they left the pterodactyls in their little
that felt
cage.
More like an oversight. No one thought to go and unlock the pterodactyls.
Well, because they know better.
Yeah, but also, Matt, is it not just a case of, well, because the pterodactyls could fly to a different island?
Yes, 100%. That's what it was. But some of the fierce birds, they're no, thank you. Keep them locked up. They were smart.
All right, Matt fears birds. Let's note that down for a future prank.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm surprised it's taking this long to get to there. I do not mess with birds. Do not like birds. So, yeah.
Caw.
Yeah.
All right. This is a really good issue. I've been loving the arc. It's been fun. The banter's been back and forth, been great. The new versions of the outfits every issue has given the different artists some stuff to play around with, and I like some of the story beats that they built on in this issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the art's good. I mentioned a few specific pages, but throughout it's very expressive. The art change for the stuff in the real world is actually a good art change because it does make it feel like we're in a different world, which is cool. So,
right.
Yeah, I have very little to critique, honestly, in this issue. How are you feeling about it?
I'm feeling the same. I love the banter from Thompson, and then the art changes, serve the story. It's not just, random pop here, pop there. And I think there's 3 because it also lists Robbie Rodriguez on the title page as well. So,
does it? Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So,
he was on the last issue, but Leah Comic Geeks didn't have him on this one, so I just left him off. But
gotcha.
Fair enough.
But yeah, so he's listed on the title page. But yeah, so it just everything flows seamlessly. And again, that the coloring were at work here too, because everything on the dinosaur realm is it's playing with those kind of hot colors. You have the reds and the yellows and all that, and it really stands out when Mari touches back in with the red. So, but yeah, really, really solid issue.
All right, well, you rating it?
I'm going to give it 8.5.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's about right. 8.5 sounds right to me. Loving the run, good stuff. Shazam, issue 13, Josie Campbell writing with Mike Norton on art. So, Billy disappeared with the Rock of Eternity at the end of issue 12. And this issue is narrated primarily by Freddy. And Freddy kind of stretches reality a little bit. I love the editor's note because he's basically... there's a little tease for the monsters in the subway for later because there's this woman on the subway who doesn't want to help this homeless man who's begging for help. She thinks he's scary, but there's actually a monster. I'll just mention it quickly because we'll get back to it later when they show up. But Freddy's saying how much he loved being a superhero and he misses his powers and all the rest of it. But Billy's disappeared, so he's now the head person to go and look for him. And there's a panel here where it says artistic interpretation of real events, and he's got the neighbor he likes, Bo, the one that just moved in next door, is like hugging him and saying, "Oh, Freddy, you're so cool. You're going to have to go find your brother who's ran away. You're such a hero," or something to that effect. And there's an editor's note at the bottom that just says, "This did not happen, Freddy."
Yes.
Credited.
It says Billy did run away in Shazam 12, but this conversation never happened. Never, Freddy. And it's not even the editor. That's Josie Campbell.
Yeah, it's the writer who's actually credited with that note, and I thought that was very funny.
Yep.
Yeah. So all good stuff. So he takes the Shazvan. I'm just gonna call it the Shavan, okay? That's Shazvan. Is stupid, right? Okay. But he takes the Shavan with Mary and Tawny to go and try and find Billy, and because the Hoppy, the bunny, is connected to the Rock of Eternity, it can trace where it is. So they're following the signal, as it were, and he's basically saying, Freddy that is saying, "Oh yeah, I'm here because you don't have a driving license, Mary." And she just sort of grumbles to herself, "I'm going to go to college in New York. I don't need one." So I crack out of that as well.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And so they're going through looking for an entrance to the Rock of Eternity, and they come across what are called ghost stations, and it's essentially it's cheaper to seal up old subway entrances than to demolish them, and Philly has a ton of them, and so they on this one is.
Do you happen to know if that's based on a real thing, or is that just something?
I think that's true. I mean, I don't know if it's in Philly, but I know in New York there's some that are like that, right? Because, pop culture can be believed. Because there's a whole subplot in Ghostbusters 2, right? When they're tracing all the goo, where they find the station.
I know a lot of movies have a lot of old unused subway tunnels and stuff, but
I'm sure that's true, knowing how public planning goes, that if it is cheaper to seal them up than to just demolish them, they're probably just sealed.
To be fair, I never even took this though as that the tunnels aren't being used. It's more just that this station doesn't get used. Yeah. So they've just sealed it off rather than
and the train doesn't stop there anymore. It's no longer a stop. It just goes straight through. But there's this weird eye painted on, which will come later, spray painted there.
Yeah, because when they go into the station and they're surprised to find all these monsters attacking people, and this is what was teased in the first scene. It's I think it's the same woman actually that might be running from the train right now. So it's like, oh shit, what are we going to do here? And this is when we cut to Billy, who's in a subway station somewhere, probably down the line. He's talking to the captain and sort of the reflection on the... Well, it's not even a reflection, really. He's just kind of seen him in the wall. But he's like, hey, what have we done here? Like, why? He only picked me because I was the only kid that was available. That's why I am the champion. There's no other reason. He didn't want a broken kid. And he was really down in his luck. And that's when one of these monsters from up the subway shows up here. And the captain starts saying, hey, quickly say the word, Billy, say the word. And Billy is getting pinned down. And it's almost like Billy's refusing to say it, despite the fact that there's a monster to fight. Yeah. Cut back to the other team, and Mary's Shazammed up. We get a full page spread of her punching a monster in full costume. It's a very nice page. Norton... I think Norton, because obviously last issue it was Lupacino and Norton, and I think we said that Norton, well, he's not maybe quite on the level of Lupacino, it's very close in style, and I think, it's still very good here. Like, I still enjoyed a lot of the art.
It's a lot more bouncy, if that makes sense. Like, his art has more, like, rounded edges than Lupacino's and stuff, so it definitely stands out. So when it's all of it, it lines up. Right here, but you kind of skimmed over a thing about the Rock of Eternity, where it's a nexus of power and it's tied to the magic of the universe. It can't just be put in Billy's house. So the captain's trying to tell him, like, it's not just a holding cell for dangerous material, like magical objects. If it's landed here, there's a reason why. So it's almost like it's being called back to the subway station, which I feel was something that Josie Campbell was hinting at in her Mary book, in some of those issues. And we'll get, to why is that again later. There's some payoff. But so they end up fighting these creatures. They're kind of like, I'm trying to describe what they're kind of like. They're kind of hairy, almost like werewolves, but they're not wolves. They're, almost gremlin-like at the same time, but they're like human-sized. So they ended up fighting them and Freddy ends up making his way to the front of the train.
First of all, they end up on a train, right? That's first things first. They end up on one of the trains, and Mary's like beating a bunch of them up. And there's some fun stuff here where Hoppy opens a portal in the middle of the... No, it's not even the roof of the train. It's just in the middle of the train, but it's a portal that sort of comes out at the top of the train. So Mary like shoves the demon or monster out of the hole, and its head bonks off the pipe at the top of the subway tunnel. So it's just really fun, little playful stuff like that. That fun vibe that this book has had is not went anywhere. No. I will say, if the art falters, it might be in a couple of these pages where, for example, when Freddy goes up to the front of the train and he's trying to, figure out how to stop it or whatever. There's a panel of Mary yelling Freddy as Freddy's talking over the comms, and the face just kind of feels a bit stretched out to me. There's just a little kink here or there with something like that.
Yeah, kind of that whole page feels like that too, because Freddy does feel like that as well, right below. Yeah. Right.
Maybe there was a bit of a rush to get everything done in time, so a couple of pages suffered.
But I do see that Hoppy also has an affection for Freddy, because Freddy feeds him all the good wood chips. Right. So he's not going to let these monsters hurt him, so he teleports them, back out of the train. Which leads to now, because Mary can understand them now, right? Because she's powered up. Because before this, they're all talking in a language, and it's translating some of the bits. But this is where they claim to be the what were they called? The submen.
Yeah, the submen.
They're the submen.
Yeah, what was surprising here is that one of them pulls out like an old school pistol, like an old. This is the pistol from Predator 2. If anyone wants a comparison point,
or like a pirate pistol.
Sure.
It's one of those one shots.
But one of them pulls one of those out and says, the mate of the gods, belongs to us, blah blah. And Mary's like powering up. She's going to electrify the tracks to sort of take them out, which she does. It's a great full page spread. All the lightning coming up. It's a glorious moment. But one of them afterwards grabs her, and she's pretty weak because she's just expended so much energy. And as she's being grabbed by this one monster, a crowbar comes flying in and says, "Leave her alone." And the next page is Billy's there as a kid, and he's with Uncle Marvel, aka Dudley, who was briefly in the Mary book, which it does have an editor's note here saying. But yeah, so it's like, okay, we're bringing this old school character into the story. How we're going to use him, I don't know. But it does raise some questions. Is exactly how did Billy get away from that monster? I mean, you assume Uncle Marvel here showed up and helped him, but how did he help him? Did he just throw a crowbar at that one? Like, it feels like there's something they're not telling us here about how that scene ended.
Yeah, so the way that they show up too with him, because when she saw Dudley, he didn't have powers. Now he does.
Does he?
So where'd that come from?
Right? What do you mean he has powers? Explain how he has powers.
So he's here as Uncle Marvel, right? And he's different, right? He has the lightning bolt kind of. It looks like taped onto him.
Yeah.
So
Matt, Uncle Marvel isn't supposed to have powers. That's why it's taped on. He was kind of like their supporter. Like back in the old school comics,
right?
Uncle Marvel doesn't have powers. At least as far as I know, he's never had powers.
Okay, but what I'm still saying here is it seems like almost like Billy, because he had said he doesn't want the power, right? It just shows some kid, And if the Rock of Eternity is meant to be this nexus, then maybe he tried to pass the power off to Dudley, and now that's how he is.
Well, I mean,
why would he call himself Uncle Marvel?
Well, because he's a fan, basically. I don't think there's any evidence on these pages that he has powers.
All right. I'm just, there's something to it.
Well, don't get me wrong. There's definitely a story as to how he got down here and is starting to help and whatever's going on. Like, I'm sure there's more to it, but I think the fact that his logo is taped onto his red t-shirt is an indication that he does not have powers and he's just being a fanboy. So, I
mean, but then what's up with the Shazam? That's off of, that's not Billy. Billy's not transformed.
What Shazam are we talking about? What Shazam are you talking about?
So when the creature has Mary up, right, and the crowbar comes in, there's a Shazam from off panel.
Yeah, well, I assume that's the captain going back into Billy.
But he wasn't transformed, right? Because when the last we saw him,
well, yeah, we don't know how that scene ended, but like clearly some stuff has changed since then. I don't think, like, maybe I'll be surprised in next issue Dudley will have some powers, but I don't think that's what's happened here.
That's how I'm reading it, because this issue is also about Freddy missing the powers, right? And if Billy has learned to share them again, right, then he can also pass this off to, because it seems like he also doesn't want the responsibility. Right, so if he's trying to pawn this off on Dudley, right, now we get a super powered, for at least an issue, Uncle Marvel, this also could be the bridge to Freddy getting the powers again.
I mean, maybe he has, but there's nothing on these couple of pages with him to suggest that to me. So,
yeah.
I mean, no, we've discussed it at this point. I don't think there's anything else to add to it.
No, I know.
I just don't think there's anything here to suggest that. But we'll find out next issue if it is. But there is obviously a story as to how that scene with Billy ended, which I'm sure will be explained next time. And like how Dudley ended up down here and exactly what's going on. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. But yeah, the end of the issue is that Freddy's trying to stop the train because he's still on the train. He's not with everyone else. And this character appears in front of the train with this magic can of spray paint, is the best I can describe it, which makes that eye symbol that was on the cover on the other subway entrance. Station cover. Yep. And it turns into like a portal, seemingly, and the train goes through this sort of like almost psychedelic portal looking thing, and like it's going through a bunch of different stuff, and then Freddy has landed in the lair where all these monsters come from, and their leader is King Kull, who is the leader of the Submen. He's got a kind of similar shape to them, but he's not the same. He's got more of a closer to human sort of skin tone with like sort of like, but he's hairy though. I guess you could say he's kind of like a mix between a werewolf and like a yeti or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's very yeti-like.
Yeah,
you know, because he has bigger proportions. They're kind of smaller, or like maybe like an orc from like fantasy, right?
Yeah,
something along those lines. So, but yeah, he looks, you know, he's more lively than the rest of the submen.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, it's a fun issue. I think all the Freddy stuff with him narrating early on was really entertaining, so I enjoyed that. I liked the team up of Mary and Freddy, and the fact that it got to focus on them a little bit more. And then all the stuff on the train was actually a really fun action sequence, and that takes up the majority of the back half of the book. So, yeah, that was a really solid issue. Still really digging the run. Yeah. And the art's pretty good overall. Obviously, there's a few panels here or there that we kind of talked about being a little bit off, but for the most part, you know, the big action scenes look really good. The performances, the character expressions are generally pretty solid, barring those few exceptions, and the colors pop quite well. You know, nice, vibrant, bright. Particularly the reds, obviously, which is important. The red and the blue for Freddy as well. Yep. For a book about these characters, so
yes,
very good. So, yeah. Yeah. So, are we giving Shazam, Matt?
I'm gonna give this a 7.5.
I think I'm happy enough to still give it the 8 out of 10. I wouldn't go above that for this. Those minor art quibbles kind of sticking out, and I'm curious to see where we're going with this Billy stuff that they're seeding. But yeah, we'll see. Correct me if I'm wrong. When we met Dudley and new champion of Shazam, he was hanging about in the subway, right?
He was hanging about in the subway, and he was helping the in-house people. So
that would explain why he's nearby, at the very least. Right. So we'll see how that goes.
And there's something that The Rock is drawn to back in the subways. You know, there's something about the subways under Philly, because that's where Billy got his powers. There's something about there. So.
I don't think it's the subway itself. It's probably just what's underneath the subway, rather than, you know. I don't think the Rock of Eternity gives a shit about the Metropolitan.
No, it's not the subway, but it's the location, right? It's almost like it's a place of crossroads, and crossroads are big in Magic.
This is the subway track that Dennis Hopper get decapitated on at the end of Speed, and it's like a nexus now for magical energy. No, okay.
Yeah.
I mean that was LA technically. It wasn't.
Not Philly.
Not Philly, but hey, whatever. Still, in my head canon it worked. All right. Justice Society of America issue 10. Geoff Johns writing with Mikel on art, and also it does mention on League of Comic Geeks Marco Santucci, which I was going to ignore and not put on because sometimes it's just like a leftover from a previous issue or whatever. But there was actually a couple of pages in this that I thought didn't look very Janin. And I think it might be Santucci, so I'm going to mention him here because I think he might actually be in the book. Okay. So I will say that this is maybe one of the biggest gaps between issues, and the first couple of pages of this, I was like, what the hell is going on? Who are these characters? What's happening?
So the last issue came out on March 19th. It is now, when this came out, was July 3rd.
That's 3.5 months.
Yeah.
3.5 months between issues. That is not great. Admittedly, don't get me wrong. After that first page with this, like, you know, Legion of Superhero Reject team.
Yep. Legion of Substitute Heroes.
Whatever, that's what I'm calling them. When I get back to the main story, I was like, okay, it's coming back to me now. Huntress, you know, made them all try and like reform some of these villains that she knows in her timeline were going to be heroes. And they're with, was it Gentleman Ghost is the one they're after right now, and they're still working with all these other villains that they've recruited, and they're sort of like, it's kind of tense, it's like, can we trust them? And, you know, Icicle Jr. tries to help at one point, but causes a big problem, which releases Surtur. It's a whole thing, which is a fun sequence. The art's very good. So I was kind of of two minds about this. On the one hand, I was like, you know what, it's all come back to me now. This is still following on from what I thought they were doing before. I was just confused by those first couple of pages with the other characters. But at the same time, part of me felt like, wait, they're still doing this? That's the other negative of the big time skip or big time gap between issues is that I'm like, wait, we're still just recruiting these characters? I feel like we were doing that 8 months ago, because we probably were doing it 8 months ago because the issues have been so spread out.
All right, so the issue 8 came out on December 26th. Then 9 came out on the 19th. So right there, it's been 7 months for 2 issues. So yeah, they have been doing this for 8 months.
Yes, that's what it feels like. It feels like it's been even longer, even. So that aside, the actual fight scene, the characters interacting, the villains screwing up when they're trying to help, was entertaining. It felt like it was exploring the idea of them trying to incorporate these characters out of the team, and the Huntress maybe starting to doubt herself, like maybe these people can't be redeemed. Maybe that future that I knew is just gone because I'm not supposed to exist and I can't expect them all to be good. And then the big thing, though, is that Mordru, young Mordru, Legionnaire, comes flying in with a plan, and his plan is to kill Hawkman, knowing that he'll come back, worth mentioning, but he kills Hawkman, steals his life energy, and gives it to Gentleman Ghost, which brings him back. Like, so he's no longer a ghost, he's just a guy in a white suit and top hat. And and then Hawkman like comes back and he's pissed off naturally because we cut to like the Hall of Justice or whatever. No, that's not the Hall of Justice, whatever the GSA's version's called.
Just the brownstone, that's what I always call it.
It's the round table, though, is what I meant. And they're debating, like, do we let this fly? Like, did he do the right thing? And Hawkman's like, I died, and every time I die, I have to relive all my lives and deaths again. I watched my wife be killed numerous times in that moment. I have to go and find her and like try and recuperate from this. And I got a bit of a chuckle of him being pissed off.
I love that because he goes, I want him gone now before I kill him, right? And they're all trying to calm him down. And I just think it's funny as they're all arguing, you know, because like QuizKid's like, well, Hawkman's immortal, isn't he? Why is this a big deal? And then that's where he gets into I have to experience all the lives and watch my wife die and all this. Yeah. But at the same time, Salem the Witch Girl, it's like, I thought it was funny. Like,
that cracked me up, actually. Yeah, Salem's little interaction there was good. Or interjection, I should say. It's also worth mentioning when we go back to the round table is when the artist change happens. It's very clearly someone else. I think when I was reading that, I didn't even click on that page. It was the next page when it was Huntress talking to young Mordru, where I was looking at the face of Mordru and going, that is not Janin. That's just not. It's not bad. Like, it's not bad art by any means, but
it's just not Janin. Janin's art's a lot more softer. You know, not as heavy lines.
Yeah, not heavy inks. It's got a very different kind of look to it. But yeah, basically they're voting on whether or not they should keep Mordru on the team, and like if they can alter the future and like make him a hero, because that's Mordru's thing. He's talking to Huntress and saying, I know that I'm supposed to turn into a villain, but I don't want to. I came back to this time because I knew you were recruiting these other villains to rehabilitate them and turn them into heroes. I want to be a part of that. I want to not become what I'm going to be in like classic GSA stories. So I kind of like that as a story beat. I also enjoy the characters debating, like Wildcat's like, oh yeah, screw this guy, whereas Dr. Midnight's like, no, Yolanda, hold up a second, maybe we can so when they come back in after the vote, Wildcat's just kind of like, it wasn't unanimous. She's clearly bitter that they've just decided to let him stay. So they welcome to the GSA, and that's when the big portal opens up and the Legion come out and say, look, you've made the wrong choice, we have to take Mordru in. And basically sets up that the Legion are going to fight the GSA in the next issue, which is fine. I think this is a solid issue. It'd be nice if it was all one artist, but both art is good, but it's definitely a shift when it switches to the other artist. But the big problem here is how long is it going to actually be until we get the payoff to this cliffhanger, and will I remember the setup for it when it comes, because I was struggling at the start of this one.
So the next one's supposed to come out August 28th. Well, so
supposed to be
2 months. That's why I said supposed to. So it'll be almost 2 months before the next one.
Yeah. So we'll probably see it in October.
Yeah. So
we'll be lucky if we get issue 12 of this by the end of the year.
If you told me 6 years ago Geoff Johns is doing Justice Society versus Legion, I would be so stoked. And now I'm just like, okay, you know. Just because
this is the thing. I ended up enjoying this issue a fair bit. I enjoyed all of the characters that he's playing with. I like the story and what it's doing. But this is definitely a solid case for me of the delays between issues, which I normally don't let hurt my enjoyment of things. They're so extreme between issues that I am genuinely struggling to like put myself back in where the story was when I start the new issue, and so it hinders
when
it.
I saw Legionnaire on the cover, I went, "Oh yeah, what's his deal?" I completely forgot that was more Drew.
Yeah,
and that was the thing I think that was revealed in the last issue.
When he came swooping in and they mentioned Mordred, I'm like, oh yeah, and it all came flooding back that we talked about him coming into it last time. But the gap between issues is so extreme that it is hindering things. I would honestly say that if you had waited for the collections to read this, you probably made the smart choice, because it'll read better than this. It absolutely will.
But all the things I love about Justice Society, all of the interactions between the members, John still has a pretty good.
That's what's frustrating about it, is that it's actually still pretty good. Like that's the annoying part, is that
and then you add in the Huntress dynamic and her whole story and being time displaced because she can't go back to her time because it doesn't exist anymore, and all of this other stuff. And now you get the Legion, who are known all for their time, and coming back to try to stop them from doing something. There's all this stuff that's very Johnsian and stuff that I enjoy. So
I would love an ongoing JSA book, but not only just because he's already done a huge run, but also because of these delays. I feel like Johns isn't the one that I want on it. Give it to. I mean, Waid would be a great choice. He may be too busy doing other bigger things, though.
And we know it's not going to be Jeremy Adams because someone asked.
Yeah.
And he said no. I mean, he could be working us, but
But regardless, I do want a future JSA book after this 12-issue series is done.
Yes.
But I think I will have a decent enough opinion of this book. It may not be like an earth-shattering, like defining story like Johnsy's initial run was, but I don't think it's a bad book. It's just the delays are hurting it, and that's the story of these reviews. The story has been these delays keep getting worse and worse.
Yeah. This is a book I forget that I'm reading until I see it on the stands at the shop. Like, well, that's the thing. I was like, oh yeah, Justice Society came out.
Every other book from DC has a week I expect it on in the month because they come out consistent. Even if they're bi-monthly, they come out in that same fourth week every other month or whatever. This book just shows up when it's finally ready to come out, and it's just a surprise.
Kind of like the Legion. They're time displaced. They just show up when you're least expecting them.
Yeah, but unlike the Legion, this is a welcome surprise.
I mean, hey. I'm excited to see where they go. And it's also the Legion from John's when he was writing Action Comics.
Sure.
Too. Sure. It's that Legion of Three Worlds, that Clark's Legion, if you will, too. So timey-wimey shenanigans. I'm here for. So just hopefully.
If we ever have to make a bet with each other for something, I think what I'm going to do is my winning condition is that if you lose the bet, you have to go back and read all of Bendis' Legion and review each issue. All the way to the end.
That's not nice.
That thought just popped in my head.
I mean, I wouldn't do that to Connor. I would,
I would.
Although, you know what? I would, because he hates Bendis. Yeah. So, that's not true.
Simply funny. All right, what are you rating GSA?
I'm going to give this an 8.
Yeah, like honestly, like I still quite liked it. I like what it's doing, and it was an easy read. It's just the delays, but I'll give it an 8. It's the sort of thing where I think the score for the collection is going to be a lot more meaningful. I think because it's just a much better way to read this particular book. Arguably, it's better for a lot of comics to read them, even when they are on schedule. But with this one, it's absolutely night and day.
I always thought that John's style also, he writes for the trade better than most. His stuff, the earlier stuff that I read in trade, so that might be coloring that a little bit. But yeah, he thinks things out in 6 parts very well. So
sure. All right, are we rating? Oh, we did that already. Never mind. Yeah, Poison Ivy issue 24. G. Willow Wilson writing with Haining on the art. Take it away, Matt.
All right, so long live Pam. So this issue, she dies.
Oh. There was a comment on one of the reviews on YouTube that said this run can be summed up as Ivy died again, no she's back again, no she died again, no she's back again. Do you concur with that?
I do, and they even comment on that in this issue.
Okay.
So Ivy dies, and it looks like it's for real this time. And
for this time, I don't think it is, Matt, but sure.
It's not, because there's an issue 25 coming. But this one really is about her being reborn, and not just in the way that she was reborn at the beginning that Wilson was doing, with her wanting to, use the Lamia spores to control things. This is a Pam with a new lease on life. And so in here, they even compare that to the life cycle of plants, right? To where it seems like things go dormant and they die in the winter, only to be reborn in spring, and that Ivy's going to constantly be doing this. Like, it's something that she has to come to terms with. But yeah, it starts with everyone being sad. Harley's cradling her. Janet from HR is crying. Grundy is mentioned, doing his repeat, but just keeps saying died on Saturday, buried on Sunday. But then he realizes, born on Monday. So he takes her into the swamps. And Harley's like, well, this is Slaughter Swamp, a place where Grundy died. And he comes back. He knows what he's doing. So as they're having this discussion, Pam starts narrating, and she even mentions death, the end of things, theoretically, and that she's done this so many times that it's just part of who she is, and that, in nature, there's regenerative aspects to things. So, like, some jellyfish are functionally immortal. Fungi aren't technically living, so they can't technically die. Viruses, they just repopulate. So, Woodrow survived, by doing all of this. So, these cycles of life and death are just part of nature. And so I'll focus on hers. Is as Grundy takes her into the swamp, into the water, she gets pulled and starts saying her name. And she goes through like this cosmic kind of psychedelic era, or not era, but like space. It looks like the galaxy. And she sees the Tree of Life, which was something that she had seen before, when she was fighting with Drew way back at the beginning of this series. And that the Tree of Life talks to her and is like, you're one of my problems. You violated every boundary that the green has, especially with the gray. You messed up big time because you took something that wasn't yours to use, tried to use it, and it came back on you, and that's why you're here. But Pam sticks up for herself and is like, look, this all comes from the green, right? The green is if it can grow, it can die, it can grow again. And the tree's like, yeah, but that's our secret. It's not meant to be shared. And when Pam questions the tree on this, it's a secret because all living things need order. Everything comes from order. And it almost is making this pitch that by Ivy being this constant being that splits, right? She's neither, a villain nor a hero. She's never human nor plant. I mean, her sexuality is a spectrum. Because of this, she defies that kind of order, and that's why she's drawn to it, right? She's almost the exception that proves the rule. And, the tree's like, I'm going to send you back, right? You have these considerable gifts. You can do good. Just don't play with the mushrooms again.
Also, I just love the sound of the garbage truck serenading you as you try and tell us what happened in Poison Ivy.
Yep. So, back in the land of the living, Harley is just beside herself because she feels like Pam's not coming back this time. And Croc comforts her and is like, I don't know, man. This is like magic. And Harley's like, yeah, but that's the thing about Pam. She doesn't believe in magic. She's a scientist. And this is where Harley brings up, it's like the flowers and the trees and grass die in the winter, but they'll come back. And so she's having this like hope beyond hope that Pam will come back. And Grundy emerges from the water without Pam, which makes everyone freak out. But as Harley's yelling at Grundy, the swamp starts coming back to life. So before this, during all the zombies, it was like this desolate, barren, like just dead trees and all this. But all this ivy starts popping up out of the water and wrapping around the trees. And Pam's reborn. And it's this really great page that's her coming up out of the water, almost like Aphrodite on the clam, and all of her hair is covering up her, her bikini region, the swimsuit areas. And Pam says that this time it feels different. It feels like she actually got some rest, right? The other time she's been reborn, it's been with like this almost out of spite. And now she says that she's felt like she's, taking a really good nap or been to the spa. And Harley runs over and hugs her. And Janet's all happy. And she can't believe she's back. And Croc's the one that mentions that she's naked, to which Janet covers his eyes and her eyes. And is like, oh, we're going to give you some decency. And so Pam grows herself her new costume, right? So it looks like the traditional Ivy, kind of the one piece. And that, she says that she's back and that she has this, new lease that she can ride this line between the two. And that as they're talking and Ivy's reminiscing that, every time I came back, I always felt Woodrew's presence, but that's finally gone. It's finally burned out. Janet can't take the guilt now because, Ivy's been free from the guilt, that she admits to Harley that her and Ivy slept together in California on the mushroom retreat stuff. And that also when Harley rescued Janet from Batman, they kissed. And Janet's like, I feel terrible. I'm a homewrecker. I'm a seductress of femme fatale. She used to pay her taxes early. And now she has no respect for the decency of law. And Harvey and Ivy just look at each other and start laughing. And Janet's like, wait, what? Neither of you mad? And they're like, well, we have a complicated relationship. We should have talked about this. It should have been out in the open, but it's not your fault. Like you're almost just caught in the crossfire. And Harley and Ivy kiss. And Grundy comments, married on Wednesday. And Croc's like, yeah, not in this lifetime. That's not for these two. But they just Harley and Ivy submit their relationship, and Janet runs off into the newly grown swamp. And she says that it feels like a weight's been lifted. And then Ivy starts talking about what this means for her, and that there's a part of her that they can find ways to help the earth that aren't violent. Like she doesn't need to be this eco-terrorist, but she's going to live for joy. And then it shows Gotham itself and just as a city, but it's like, we still are going to have to fight. Like I can live for joy, but I have to fight. And that part of that is making sure that the earth's healthy. And if that means I'm a terrorist to some people, so be it. But I'll be a hero to others. As she's walking around the swamp, there's like a creek. And she goes, well, that's interesting. Because at the end of this creek is like this little town. Like it looks like a little western town. And she goes, there was never a town here before. Where'd this come from? And she says, she wonders where it came from. And she mentions, because the earth demands that we act without fear, she's going to go in with curiosity now. And that's where the issue ends. So, again, Ivy dies and comes back. It's part of her cycle. That's been this, I think that's in the meta sense, that's what Willow's getting at, or G. Willow Wilson is getting at, that because she's not quite human, not quite plant, she can go through these different spurts of life and death and come back out. And as long as she grows from it, she'll keep living, right? The moment that she gets, consumed by one side or the other, that's the moment where it seems like it's not going to work out for her. The art through this by Haining is really good. It's not as strong as Takara, but a lot of the plant stuff and her talking to the trees, really, really good. The scene of her growing her whole new costume, the way that that's laid out, it really makes it feel like a big moment. And then the expressions from everybody. This issue kind of not lives and dies, but it's really big on everyone's how they react to one another, down to Croc and Grundy. Two characters you don't think of being expressive. Haining manages it really well. There's also a hint for something called the Green Knight. So I wonder if that's going to play into something. But yeah, really, really solid issue. I'll give it an 8.
All right. We go on to The Boy Wonder, issue 3, Juni Ba, on both writing and art. So, this is the Tim Drake issue, as we expected, after the last one being Jason, the first one being more Dick-focused. And this one is Damian going with Tim to a fundraiser and trying to sort of deduce like how the demon that Damian's investigating is connected to it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of Damian judging Tim and not trusting him, of course. There's a lot of one of my favorite things of this issue is whenever he like doubts something or he questions something or he sympathizes with something, there's those panels coming in of the demon version of Damian saying weakness. I really like that as a recurring motif.
Or is that meant to be Roz? Because when we get to the point where he mentions his mom and grandfather,
yes,
that's the same shadow entity, right? So I wonder if that's just the Al Ghul side of him, like, because it is meant to be part of him, right? But I also feel that that's also, it feels like that's Roz calling him weak.
I mean, it might be, but we've seen him with these horns in previous issues, and I think the whole point is he's a mini Raz. And I think the silhouette makes me think more of Damian because they've shown Damian with the silhouette like that a lot throughout these issues. So I was thinking it's more of the sort of the demon version of Damian as opposed to anything else. But either way, though, you get the vibe that it's going for. But yeah, basically a big part of this issue is that when they get to this fundraiser thing, and Damian just wanted to sneak in and like steal information. Tim's like, no, we have to be suave. We have to go in and talk to people. And Lex Luthor's there, Maxwell Lord's there, and we have to schmooze and whatnot. And Damian basically thinks that Tim's like making deals and is not focused on what he's supposed to be doing and whatnot. Yeah, Matt?
Yeah, I was gonna say he's very, very focused that like he wants to see Tim in a bad light, right?
Yes,
because he's very jealous, and you never got the vibe that Damian was ever jealous of Dick or Jason, but he's very jealous of Tim. So he's watching him make these deals. He's like, oh yeah, look at him shaking hands with these bad guys. If my father saw him doing this, oh my goodness.
Yeah, and yeah, and Penguin's mayor in this continuity of this book. So Penguin's the one hosting this party, and he comes down and he's got like the gross teeth and he's been all slimy and smiling.
He's definitely Batman Returns. Danny DeVito Penguin.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was the other thing. Why I think it's a Damian demon that's in those green panels where he says weakness is actually just the height of it. Like if you look at the page after he shakes hands with Penguin, there's the panel where it says weakness, right? And then it's Damian afterwards. He's about the same height as Damian, where Tim's kind of towering over. Now I know it's different panels, but to me that's kind of suggesting the height of the demon silhouette, if you will. But yeah, so he's talking about how Tim's doing all this stuff, and Tim doesn't even bring up the fact that he killed this guy. Damian just starts thinking about it. Like there's this guilt kind of in him that because he did this, he made this mistake. He'll always be the run. He'll always be the one that's not the perfect son kind of thing. But yeah, so Damian goes on his way. Sneaking around, he pulls out and there's a sort of recurring thing in this issue where he pulls out like a gadget, whether it's earbuds or this little hacking computer, and there'll be a little panel sort of explaining what it is and what its purpose is, and
it's almost like it's out of a catalog.
Yes,
you know, like you're reading like what like what each thing does. So he has like the Wayne Enterprises like mini supercomputer, like a laser that he uses at time, very very gadgety, which I also think is funny. Because I associate that type of stuff with Tim, right? Tim's the one that kind of uses the gadget.
Well, so that's intentional because he tries to use this little computer to hack in, and he gets shut out. And it's not because the security system is strong enough to fight it. It's because someone else has already hacked in, and we find out at the end of the issue that Tim's the one that's already hacked in. So it's a very intentional thing that he's doing very similar things that Tim would do, and Tim's actually beat him to it. But yeah, he gets into his Robin outfit. He goes crawling through the vents. There's a glorious full-page spread showing kind of him like squeezing through the vents and like checking out various like rooms and being like, nope, not this one, nope. some of it's in silhouette, some of it's not, and he's clearly getting tired the more he goes around these vents. And then he eventually gets to the one that he thinks he's found it, and he uses this fancy laser to try and cut through it. But there's a warning that says, oh, it's you shouldn't be using it in enclosed spaces. It's prone to overheating. So of course we get a comedy sequence here where Damien basically sets himself on fire, and the laser thing melts, and he ends up falling through into the secret room where a bunch of the kidnapped people that have been kidnapped by the demon are all in these like coffin things around a pool, which my first thought was that looks like a Lazarus pit. It's not exactly, right? It's actually a portal. It's like a Lazarus portal. But that basically spoiled the ending for me, because I immediately said, oh, Ra's al Ghul's behind this. And what's the end of this issue? Ra's al Ghul's behind this. This demon that's in Gotham is working for Raz and Talia in some form or another. Obviously, there's a little bit before we get to that, though, where he's trying to figure out what's going on. This demon's there. There's a great full-page spread where it sort of just does like black and white, but not grayscale. It's like a solid white silhouette on a black background, and then a little red silhouette Robin, sort of like a tiny in the frame. And then that's when Tim comes in to help save the day. How do you feel about this Red Robin costume with the bigger beak?
It's weird. I mean, I understand why they're, like, it's making it stand out, because if it was just the plain hood, you know what I mean? It'd make him look like Red Hood. So I feel like it's just to make him visually distinct. Beyond it, to me, it's the cape that makes the wings. It's a little bit weird.
Yeah, I don't hate the cowl. It's kind of... Because the Red Robin's outfit, right? Even back when it was Dick and Kingdom Come, which is where the outfit originally came from.
Right.
I always thought that cowl that looks like it should have bat ears, not having bat ears, and is just a flat sort of bald cap almost, always looked a bit plain. So, well, I'm not saying I love this big beak version of it to give it more of a bird-like look. Yeah. I do at least appreciate that it's something. That it's not just the skin-tight dome.
Yeah, it matches the logo for the first time.
Yes.
Right, because the Red Robin logo has the big beak and stuff. But to me, it doesn't strike me as Red Robin. He looks more like a bird of prey, too. Right? So, I don't know. Just mixed messages all around. Like, it's not terrible, but I appreciate Juni Ba using this to make Tim so distinct from the other Robins as well. Yeah.
I don't hate it. Like, I'm not saying I love it, but I don't hate it. Anywho, so basically Damien has to realize that Tim's been actually doing good stuff all night. He's been smoozing up to the rich people to get information on them, to hack into them, to sort of find out their secrets. Tim's the one that actually planted a bug and destroyed the Batman statue. That's because the main hall when they walked in had statues of all the Justice League, and Damien had a whole thing was like, oh, father would never appreciate being used on display in this place. Yes. And then it's like, oh, someone agreed with you because the head's gone. Like someone already destroyed it. But basically, he's been using all this tech stuff all issue, and all of it's not worked for Damien. The computer thing didn't work. The laser thing ended up... I mean, I guess it got him out of the vent, but it almost killed him. So, how you confirm that one way or another. But Tim's like, nah, let's go with a classic, and he pulls out the bow staff and gives Damien one, and they fight side by side. So yeah, it feels like Damien's learned a lesson about assuming anything about Tim, and they fight the bad guy. And there's even a good bit here where Damien obviously is trying to live up, like that's the big question through all these issues, is that can he live up to what Batman wants from him? And we keep returning to that, him telling these stories to this crook at the start of each issue. When he throws the smoke bombs, there's this great thing where it's like his inner monologue becomes these big letters and these big panels to themselves that says, I will be worthy, I will be worthy. Now, it's a little obsessive perhaps, but it does sort of say, it lets us know what he's occupied in his mind. Yeah. So, very good stuff. They do a sort of simultaneous kick to this demon that's been kidnapping people. So the demon, realizing he's losing, starts firing these like human coffin containers into the pool in the middle of the room. And they're like, shit, we have to grab as many of these people and like tie them down as best we can. So they start doing that. And this is where Damien sort of realizes that Tim's been doing all this stuff for the right reasons. And Tim even explains, "Oh, Batman taught me the idea of disguises," and we see some Matches Malone panels.
I love it. I love that Juni Ba is using every, like not every element of Batman, but here we get to see his version of Matches as well. And it's all, Tim being essentially in disguise, even if it's as himself, right? He's playing a character in a way that Damien would not understand, right? Because Damien is just himself at all times. So I love this whole thing. And that panel down at the bottom that is split with Matches and then Batman.
Yeah.
That's a great image.
Also, Tim is so young in this flashback panel where Batman's Matches Malone. He looks like he's 10 or something.
Yeah, he looks like he should be in kindergarten.
Yeah.
Like he looks younger than 10.
But that's cool. Yeah. So, yeah. Now, here's where you get both Raz and Talia silhouettes saying weakness, which maybe lends credence to what you were saying, that you thought that was Raz the whole time, because this is definitely Raz here. But they're both saying weakness as they're trying to save these coffins. So, yeah. But, yeah, so ultimately, the big demon tries to attack Tim, and Damien pushes him out the way, and he gets knocked into the pool. So we get this cool page where he's sort of in the blobs of green liquid, and he comes out on the other end. And while he's in there, he also envisions the criminal's head that he cut off. He sees that again in there, like he's having like a spiritual moment almost. And he pops out on the other side, and who's there but Ra's al Ghul and Talia, cloaked in darkness, and they say, "Welcome home." So clearly, and honestly, it's inevitable it was leading to them, because all of this has been about Damien and where he came from and choosing a side between his mother's side and his dad's side. Ultimately, he's going to have to make some choices here about who he's backing. Oh, and obviously, it's a Robin story, so it's going to be the right choice ultimately.
Right.
But no, I thought this was a very fun issue again. I love how easy on the eyes the art is. It's not my favorite art of all time by any means, but it's a very easy to look at book.
Very much. And a lot of the storytelling is also done through the art, so that helps. Like that whole page where Damien's in the vent, is you can just look at his frustration, because it's kind of like a maze.
Yep.
Right. So by the time you work your way down, and you don't necessarily have to follow him, but when you see that he's tired, you fully get it. And there's no words really on that page.
You know what's funny is what this made me think of more than anything, story-wise, with them sending people in these coffin things through a portal to where the League of Assassins are. It was making me think of Phantasm, because that's what happens in Phantasm. Yeah. The tall man sending the corpses through a portal to this alien world, and it was making me think of that. And in that movie, they're doing that to turn these dead people into slaves, so they can sort of reanimate them into these little miniature slaves.
Hey, that's what Phantasm's about.
It gets to that point, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. No, it was a haunted house. Wow.
Oh no, it's not haunted house. You should watch the first 2 or 3 Phantasm movies, Matt. They're worth watching.
Yeah, I'll get to them.
But it was giving me those vibes. So I immediately thought that these people were going to be turned into members of the League of Assassins or something that are in the because they're not dead. They're just kind of
no.
They've been put to sleep and they're in these coffin things. Maybe sarcophagus would be an even better word for them, because they got that shape.
Yeah, that's what they seem like, right? Because they're kind of like mummies, right? You find the mummies in.
Yeah.
So yeah, sarcophagus is pretty spot on.
So yeah, fun story. If anything, the only critique I'd really have of it is that I feel like in the previous issues, Damien's problems with his, quote unquote brothers, where he's doubting Dick, and then Dick proves himself to him. He's doubting Jason, and we see how that anger stuff goes. I will say Damien's assumption that Tim's actually doing criminal things when he's making deals with Lex Luthor and talking to them is such a leap. To just assume that he's not just playing the role that he's meant to be playing is a bit of a leap to me. So that said, though, I did enjoy when he realized at the end, oh no, he's just playing the character so he can get into places.
Yeah, I just think that's what he wanted to believe about Tim, because he's so jealous.
Yeah, I can see it.
So that's what he's just oh yeah, look at him. He's making these deals with Lex Luthor and Veronica Cale. It was and Cobblepot. So
the first time he had a narration thing where he's like, "Oh, look at him! Look at him betraying father." I'm like, "What are you talking about? I didn't get at all that he was betraying anyone. He's just smoozing like the way Bruce would if he was here. But,
well, and that's maybe a side that Damien's never seen of Bruce, right?
True, that's a good point.
Because this is still early. This is still early in him being Robin. So
he's never seen billionaire Bruce going.
No.
Go be billionaire Bruce, I guess. Yeah.
Right. So it's just again from all misunderstanding. I also like the new place. What was it called? The Nest, or whatever, the tallest building in Gotham. That's where it's all going.
Oh yeah, Penguins.
I like that as well.
Yeah, Penguins built this skyscraper called the Nest, which makes sense because and Penguins have nests, right?
Yeah, Penguins do make nests, but just like keeps up with this whole bird theme.
Yeah.
And just of course Cobblepot would have to have the tallest building in Gotham. So I like all of that.
In some ways, he's kind of like Gotham's closest equivalent to Lex. Obviously, he's still very different in a lot of ways, but in the sense of the ego and the power and all that, he's that.
Whereas I feel like Lex doesn't want to get his hands dirty, right? Because he wants to always have plausible deniability.
He's not a crime boss, but that idea of wanting to have the tallest building in the city is definitely him.
Yeah. Well, it's again Cobblepot. He made his way to mayor, right?
Yes.
Lex made it to president. That's what I always will say. That's the difference between the two.
Yeah. So, another fun issue. This has been an enjoyable Black Label book. I'm having a good time. What are you rating him at?
I'm going to give this an 8.5.
Yeah, I was just thinking straight 8, so I'll stick with that. But I don't really have much of a reason to rate it lower than you. Just what it feels like. So one last book to talk about. I have a Patreon book every month on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. One of the higher tiers, you can make myself read a book of your choosing. And this is American Vampire Second Cycle issue 9, which so if you remember, we're dealing with the whole Skinner and Calvin are going to space to try and get the satellite taking photographs to stop the Russians from nuking basically all of the southwest of America. And meanwhile, Pearl and what's her face, Felicia, were trying to get into where this weapon might be and where the monster is. But unfortunately, they were betrayed by an old vassal's comrade who's now with the vampires, and that's kind of where things pick up with this issue. And it is a pretty solid issue, all things considered. It may be, it kind of like finally builds up to the opening of this arc, because if you remember, the opening of this arc was the little tease that space. The landing pod came back down from space and it was filled with vampires. That was like the opening teaser scene right at the back at the start of this arc. We finally kind of get a payoff to that. But this is made up of the two plot lines. It's the two ladies. There is a little tease at the start though, with a sort of post-apocalyptic world set in Vegas, and there's a kid who's maybe in his teens, and it's Felicia's kid, right? The kid she's raising. It's him, but he's older. He's with some other survivors, and they get attacked by like vampire hands coming out of the ground. And then it seems like Skinner is here and says, "Sorry, kid." He basically asks, for help, and Skinner seemingly stabs him through the face with his claws. So it's really painting this really bleak future that might be happening. Now, whether or not it's actually happening, or this is just like the future, the Grey Trader is kind of like pumping into Skinner's head or something like that, or even into Felicia's head, is another question. But it's definitely this ominous tease at the start. But you've got Skinner and Cal get up to space, and they're in the launcher pod, and there's a whole thing here where Cal tries to talk to Skinner and says, "Hey, promise me you're going to try and do the right thing up here." Like, he talks about how his brother is dying in a hospital because I don't remember what the cause of his brother's illness was, but like his brother was this important. Oh no, sorry, it wasn't illness. He got bashed in the head because he was protesting, and his brother was like a moderately successful singer for a while, and he was part of the VMs back in the day, and now he's fighting for his life in a small town that's like a nothing town, and goes into detail about this town, like everything's corn based because they grow corn, and that's the entire town's identity, and now he's dying in this hospital. But his brother always tried to do the right thing, so that's inspiring Cal to always try and see the world the way his brother sees it, and he's trying to do the right thing. So promise me you'll help me do the right thing up here. So it's a really good little speech to just make you care about Cal a bit more again. Not that you ever stopped, but just this idea of like giving him a human moment here, to set up some personal emotional stakes on this sort of possibly one-way mission as they're going up to space. So the coloring here is really good. There's a lot of like orange hues and stuff, and as they're sitting inside this pod as they're going up through the atmosphere and into space, almost as if they've just been hit directly with sunlight as they're coming out of the Earth. But yeah, there's a good few pages of that, and then like when the door on this pod opens to space, like they're just kind of in awe of like seeing the sunlight coming around the rim of the Earth. Because like right before that, Skinner's looking out the window and he's like, what the hell? It's just a rock in space. That's all the planet is. It's nothing special. But when the doors open and they see the sunlight with their own eyes coming around the rim of the planet, they're just kind of like, well, even Skinner's kind of humbled by it. It's a really quiet page as you just sort of see the vastness of space and like how small they are in relation to the planet. So the art's done a lot of good stuff here, of really building the mood and the tone and how big this feels that they're up here. Of course, one of the problems though is that as they're down on the mission control, you've got the agent, whose name Bixby, I think it is. Agent Bixby's the one talking to them. He's the one that obviously said to Cal, "You make sure you kill Skinner before you come back down." That was one of the little teases last issue. He finds out from like NASA down there that, oh yeah, hopefully they don't catch whatever the monkeys caught, and he's like, "What are you talking about?" Well, when we set up monkeys for like a test flight, they came back down diseased, right? And clearly this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, but he just happens to mention they had big fangs. And like the art here is great because Bixby's eyes just go wide and he's like, wait a minute, fangs? Right? And he starts like, trying to talk to them in space, but they're so close to the satellite now that it's interfering with the transmission. So he's yelling, damn it, don't open the door. You're in a dangerous situation. Don't open the door. So the final page of the issue is that there's like Russian vampires in there. Well, I mean, as in they used to be Russian, I think, but they're vampires now.
They're Soviets.
Yeah. So that's the big cliffhanger. So that sort of like finally ties into that capsule that came back down at the start of the arc with the vampires. That was obviously the monkeys that was sent up. So really fun. The second plot though that's also been playing throughout the issue is that because they were betrayed, Pearl and Felicia have been trapped in a box, a glass box of some kind. Which they specifically call a magic hat trap, because whatever they put in it, they can make disappear. So yeah, they talk about what was this weird bit of history they put in here? Because every so often Snyder will put in like, oh, this is how we're going to tie a part of real history to like the history of the vampires. It mentions here that I think it was JFK had hired the vassals or the military to use like a species of vampire fish to to swim around Cuba, to like keep an eye on Cuba during the whole missile crisis.
Yeah, so during Cuba and that whole thing, because they were so close and they had such close ties to Soviet Russia, right? There was a lot of weird plans that were planned to try to disrupt them. So I'm wondering if that's what Snyder's commenting on.
I'm sure it is. The fact that you said that as if, oh, well, I can see where this is coming from is actually quite funny to me. But so they try and tie it into history. Anyway, they torture the stone dude, the guy made of stone, the gnome or whatever he is. And there's a great bit here where they're saying, hey, why don't you tell us where the vassal's base are? Tell us everything you know and we'll stop torturing them. And Felicia just says, F you, I'm not doing it. And then the vampire dude from the military says, hey, we'll even come after your son, Gus, which is actually a really important name drop of the son, because if you didn't remember who Gus was in the opening scene in the future, when they said his name was Gus, this was a nice little reminder of like, hey, that kid in the future who seemingly died was the kid she's raising from all those previous arcs. So, good thing, right? And she can't respond to that, but it's actually the stone dude who says, she said F you, and Felicia just sort of sighs and goes, you heard him. So the vampire goes all Cthulhu mouth, where he has like all these tentacles because he gets angry. He's like, all right then. Boy. And then the next page you just see all these like bits of stone just lying around, like they've just pulled them apart and killed them. So and then all I can describe this trap is that the two ladies are involved in is that opening scene from Batman Forever where the guy's like, it's boiling acid. It's basically that. They start pouring acid into this tank, and they climb up on the table that they've got in there to try and stay away from it, but they can't touch it. And they're like, hey, what are our options here? And it's like, well, we can't go in the acid, and if you try and touch the acid with anything else, you'll just die a different way, so there's nothing we can really do. But the way they get out is that the villains are playing with the head of the stone guy, and they're tossing the head around, and they're making fun of it, and they're saying how pathetic it is. And then, as the vampire's holding it, the stone head, who's still alive technically, the head's still alive, spits at him, right? And the vampire goes, haha, you missed. It's like, no, he didn't. He was spitting at the tank. The tank is its own, his spit's its own kind of acid, and it starts melting through the tank, and the two ladies sort of burst out, and we get a really fun big page of them bursting out of the glass, and then there's a fun couple of action scenes of them, killing the vampires and whatnot. And then ultimately, they're like, okay, well, what are we doing now? And Felicia's like, well, we have to go and find the nukes. And Pearl's like, wait, so nukes to steal? And it's like, no, we've already lost. The fact that they know we're coming, and the fact that even the vampire said they know what Skinner and Calvin are doing, they know that they're taking care of the satellite, that's actually good for them. It's good for the villains, because it'll stop Russia from nuking them. So they're quite happy with that. Felicia's like, look, the only thing we've got to do now is start the end of the world. So it seems like she's planning on nuking the area to seal everything that's down there, and that might even lead to this post-apocalyptic version of Nevada that we saw in the opening scene. Now, whether or not they actually go through with that, or it comes about some other way, or this is a tease that it might happen, but something will stop it, I don't know. But it's linking those things together, big stakes. And Pearl and Felicia have a couple of good bonding moments in this issue when they're giving each other pep talks, and Felicia's saying, hey, I'm sorry that I dragged you into this plan. She's like, no, I came looking for you. So there's that kind of shared camaraderie by the end of this issue as well. So I think the space plot was a bit more exciting, but it was still a fun story of them breaking out. But the space stuff definitely had all the really cool art, because we get to see the two astronaut suits going through space with just the glint of sunlight on the visors and all the rest of it. It's just really stunning stuff. The art really is the showpiece of this issue, even more than the plot, as I would say.
I'm gonna say it sounds like that heads towards Albuquerque's, what he's real good at with he said the sun coming off the suits, and all that stuff. Right into that.
Really good stuff. So yeah, that's my thoughts on issue 9. I'll go an 8 out of 10. I think the art's really great. I'm enjoying the story quite a bit. I don't think it's quite as good story-wise as one or two of the other issues of this arc has been, but this arc has been really good. I've liked this arc, I think, more than the first arc of this second cycle book. When it's the second of 2 arcs, because after this it goes on to a new series again. So there you go. That's American Vampire second cycle issue 9, which will bring us to the final part of the show, which is where we pick our favorite stuff of the week. Favorite panel/moment, favorite cover, favorite art, and top 5 books. What is your moment/panel of the week, Matt?
Okay, so I'd love to give it to Ivy's Rebirth, because that was a real fun moment. Birds of Prey had some as well. A lot of the stuff with Barda I really liked. But I'm going to give mine there in Birds of Prey, but it's going to be the last page with Mari taking the pterodactyl powers, and it's all outlined and all that. That was just a real good one.
Cool. I think I will. Yeah, I'm not sure what to go with this week. Obviously, Vixen coming in pterodactyls was great stuff at the end. Birds of Prey. I don't know. Maybe the moment in Batman where they go in, the villains go in, and Batman's just standing in the room already, and everything's empty, like he's waiting for them. That's kind of a cool, badass moment. That said, though, there's a lot of good absolute power moments. It's just tough to pick one. I don't know if any of them stand out more than the others.
No, they all kind of, I don't want to say blend, but they all seem about at the same level, so none of them really stick out.
I'll tell you what I'll go with. I'll go with the 2-page spread in Birds of Prey with Cass jumping around a dinosaur, and you sort of seeing her in the 5 positions across the page. Pretty good. Really nice. All right, cover of the week. I want to shout out the Sam Pierre cover on Absolute Power.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Although I will just it might have been the pick, if not for the fact that I feel like Wonder Woman's proportions just feel a little bit off because her arms feel either her arms are too thick or he didn't make her shoulders broad enough. Like there's something just kind of off in the proportions a little bit. But otherwise, it's a very, very nice page with the Trinity all in handcuffs. Really interesting. I also shout out just across the board all the Jose Luis Garcia Lopez variants. They're all pretty nice. The Shazam and Batman's one stuck out to me the most, but they're all really good, similar ideas of just these Silver Age great versions of the characters. My pick of the week, though, is going to be a Birds of Prey variant. It's going to be the Serge Acuna variant with Barda and Cass inside the mouth of a T-Rex and Canary on top. It's just really fun idea for a cover. And the artwork itself is very good. I love how sort of deep in contrast to the T-Rex looks with the inks. So that's my pick. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, so I want to shout out the Boy Wonder cover by Carrie Randolph. It's it's got Tim and everybody kind of from the issue. Almost looks like a movie poster for the issue, but just the proportions are all traditionally comic. Like the way it looks, there's a lot of fun purples and stuff on there too, and the outline makes kind of the demon kind of that makes that shape. So that one's a nice one. But mine's going to be an Ivy cover, and it's going to be the David Nakayama variant, and it's got Pam in her newer suit from earlier in the thing, like the coveralls, watering some plants, and just the way the color, it almost looks like an old style pinup art. But yeah, it looks real nice.
Cool. All right, art of the week. This is maybe a little tough, actually.
Yeah, this comes down to two books. So if you want to talk yours out, unless you're also not decided.
I think I'm going to edge it out to Mora on Absolute Power, but Birds of Prey was a strong contender. It was tough to pick.
Yep, that's where I was at too, because Birds of Prey is consistent as much as Mora is, just in a different way. But to me, I think Mora just edges it out just because of the differing layouts, the different heroes. Like there's a lot of chaos, but it never feels chaotic.
There's a lot going on, in that book.
But you never get lost in it. So I'll just barely give it to Absolute Power.
All right, rank your top 5 books, Matt.
All right, 1, Absolute Power. 2, Birds of Prey. 3, Batman.
Whoa.
4, Boy Wonder, and 5, Poison Ivy.
Yeah, number 1 for me is Absolute Power. Number 2 is Birds of Prey. Number 3 is... I'll go Shazam number 3. I'll go 4 Batman, 5 what have I got left? Boy Wonder and JSA. I'll go Boy Wonder. I'll go Boy Wonder.
There you go.
JSA wasn't bad though. I still like JSA.
No. Yeah. Just some of the elements in Boy Wonder just barely edged it out.
Yeah. All right, cool. I'll tell you what's coming next week from DC Comics. We have Action Comics 1067. We got Green Lantern 13, probably the one I'm most excited for next week. We got Batman and Robin 11. We have Gotham by Gaslight, The Kryptonian Age, issue 2. We have Absolute Power Task Force 7, issue 1, which was mentioned in the main book this week. Waller said, hey, we're sending out Task Force 7, 7 different targets. Which does make me think it may be a little repetitive if each one's just a different member hunting someone different.
That's what it seems like.
That's what it sounds like. I'll try one and we'll see how it goes. We got Batman 89, Echoes issue 3, Outsiders issue 9. We got from the DC Vault, Death of the Family, Robin Lives issue 1, Sinister Sons issue 6, Looney Tunes 279, and then a bunch of facsimile editions. Oh, and also Primer Clashing Colors issue 1. So that's what's coming next week from DC Comics. But that will wrap up the show. Thank you for joining us, everyone. If you want to support the show and help keep it coming, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV is how you can do that. All goes to plan because Matt's not available next week. It should be Connor on the show in his stead, and hopefully you'll enjoy hearing from him. But thank you very much for joining. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.